Ben Stark here, recording another M20 Draft video. This is a brand new draft. We're doing traditional best of 3. Recording this for my YouTube channel. Let's see what we got here. So Cavalier Flame is good. It's probably what I'm going to take. It's definitely first pickable. It's not a windmill slam Cavalier like, let's say, the black or maybe even the blue one. It pumps your creatures. It can give them haste, but you're already spending mana then, so you're probably not able to cast too much. But it is a powerful card. Triple red to cast is committing, but it's well worth it. And all in all, if you can get some lands in your graveyard, you can get some more value. Basically, it's a good card. It's a very good card. It's a first pick, a clear first pick. I'm just saying it's not one of the top rares in the set. Flame Sweep is also good. I've first picked this card and been quite happy with it. Even in traditional creature decks, you can get a lot of value because it's an instant. You try and prioritize flyers, which there's a lot of in this format, even in red. You've got the 2-mana 2/1 that you can pay a red to give it flying if you have a different creature out with flying. Plus, there's the 4-mana 3/2 that is flying on your turn. And, of course, you get to pair it with a second color. So if you start with it, you're going to try and either pair it with high toughness green creatures or blue or white flyers. Overgrowth Elemental is one of the key uncommons for the Elementals deck. It's no Risen Reef. It's not broken, but it's a really powerful card. If you have an Elemental out when you play this, you're effectively paying 3 mana for 4/3 because you get a +1/+1 counter. And that it grows every time an Elemental dies, and you gain life every time any of your creatures die. The commons in this pack are really weak. There's none of the good removal. There's no Leafkin Druid. There's nothing I would even look at. If I ever had to first pick any of the commons from this pack, I would be really unhappy. So I'm going to take Cavalier here over Flame Sweep and Overgrowth because, like I said, it is a good first pick. And then we'll see what comes next. So now we have some interesting choices because the best card in this pack is Tomebound Lich. But, of course, that's a blue-black-gold card. Doesn't go particularly well with Cavalier of Flame. Meteor Golem can go in any deck, so it's a nice safe pick here to take second. Red decks tend to be pretty aggressive in this format. You don't necessarily want 7 drops, but we're probably looking at a 17-land deck with since we already have a powerful 5-drop. And then Shock. I think Chandra's Outrage is probably better in this format, but it's close, and Shock is good, efficient removal, and you should always play it. It's a fine early pick, especially to follow up a Cavalier with. Leafkin Druid is great. I think it's the best green common. I think it's better than Rabid Bite. I like ramping a lot, and the fact that it ramps by 2 in your land light hands when you can probably put 4 creatures out is really powerful. Ferocious Pup is common and gives you 2 creatures right off the bat to follow it up with. I think it's an excellent card. And then the rest of the commons aren't very good. So this is a pick. Oh, I didn't talk about Overcome. Overcome varies a lot. It's actually been overperforming in this format from what I would expect from +2/+2 and Trample to all your creatures, partially because of Ferocious Pup, things like Leafkin Druid, and just putting a lot of creatures in play in general, and this being like a slow, somewhat stalematey type of format. That said, I'm not looking to take it over Leafkin Druid in general. There are times I will. If I need finishers, if I already have a lot of good early plays, but I want to secure my early plays first generally. And I already have a powerful 5-drop, so a Leafkin Druid goes a lot better with that than Overcome. So I think this is a pick between Druid, Shock, Lich, and Meteor Golem. And they're very different. Lich, like I said, is definitely the best. But do we really want to follow up a triple red Mythic with a blue-black-gold card? I think Leafkin Druid would probably go the best with Cavalier, even better with it than Shock, but then we're making our foray into a second color. Knowing we already have a 5-drop that's powerful, I think Meteor Golem's actually a pretty good pick because we can prioritize the card drawing and ramp creatures and spells and be prepared to actually cast our Cavalier and be prepared to cast Meteor Golem. So I'm going to grab that second and stay open for now. Noxious Grasp is one of the best of the color hosing cycle of uncommons as far as sideboard cards, but I don't really like to main it unless I have ways to loot or rummage it away. Agonizing Siphon and Bone Splinter are solid removal spells, but they're nothing on the power level of like a Murder or even a Chandra's Outrage. I generally take Audacious Thief over both of them. I consider Audacious Thief the second best black common, but they're both solid playables that are almost always going to make my deck. Then we get down to the rest of the commons. We see Pup, we see Druid again. I just took another 7-drop. So now I think I do want to take Leafkin Druid. It can ramp these out. I think it goes better with them than Siphon and Bone Splinters. Black-red is a good archetype, but so is green-red. You can play pretty much whatever in this format. We're not committed to anything, and if I have to drop the Cavalier, I will. But for now, let's take Leafkin Druid and see what's in the next pack. Okay, and it doesn't look like I'll have to drop the Cavalier. Shock is probably the best card in this pack. I like Garrick's Fenlurker a lot. That's a way improved Ravenous Rat, because the problem with Ravenous Rat is in the late game, it was basically just a dead card. And this card, on the other hand, in the late game, that's when you have mana to sink into it. So it's not a dead card at all. So I think that Fenlurker is really good at getting you 2-for-1s and is a nice card, but Shock with the Cavalier, and Shock's probably better than Fenlurker anyway. Portal is a nice way to get value. You have to have, like, I'd say 3+ creatures it works with, but it is a slow, grindy format. There are plenty of creatures like Frostlings and the Seer, the 2/1 flyer that draws a card when it comes into play, which is the best blue common in my opinion, Seer, that it works with, and those are both commons. So it's not hard to pull good portal tricks in this format, but it's not in consideration here. Now we have kind of an interesting choice. The best card is Bone Splinters, but we don't have any black cards yet. We're not committed to colors at this point, especially nothing besides red. We have the best green common. We have 2 good red cards, one that's roughly equivalent to the best red common and one that's a first pick rare. So we're trying to play red, but we don't have to. But we could easily drop Leafkin and play red-black. Other than that, we would take on Cage Fury, which is a pretty good trick. Since it's an uncommon, people often don't see it coming. You can get lethal out of nowhere sometimes. We could take Aethergust, a good sideboard card. I don't really like Wolfkin Bond that much, unless you're specifically doing a wolf thing or an aura thing or trying to go wide. I just think you generally can do better with that much mana. So I think Bone Splinters is the pick here. Okay, now there's a red card I like a lot. Scampering Scorcher works really well with a few different cards, not just Risen Reef. I mean, it has great synergy with Bone Splinters. Also just Recursion, because you can chump or trade off the real one and then still have the token parts and then buy it back with Soul Salvage or Gravedigger. It's not really competing with much. Red is the color we're most trying to play. Loaming Shaman maybe is the next best card, and that card's just fine. So this is a clear Scampering Scorcher. Now, again, we have a more interesting pick. We could take Destructive Digger. It is a slow format. It's a fine drop. You can trade it off on turn 3, or in the late game, you can use it to draw cards. It's not a great card or anything. Or you can take Fathomfleet Cutthroat, which works pretty well with Shock and Scorcher and some of the stuff we have, and is quite good in red-black in general. And then there's the green ramp stuff, like Gifts of Paradise, which I think is good, knowing we have a 7-drop Meteor Golem, as well as a triple red 5-drop. Gifts of Paradise on a forest means we could almost definitely just cast Cavalier on turn 4 here, because it lets that land add 2 mana of any color, so now that forest can add double red, and then as long as we have a single mountain, we can cast Cavalier. So Gifts is something our deck wants, especially if we're going to play more of a ramp strategy than an aggro strategy, which is what we have. We have something that goes wide, we have power rare to win with, and we have a 7-drop that's really powerful, and our removal kills early creatures, which is better in control decks because you stop them from beating you down and then you close with your finishers. Removal that kills... The smaller your creatures, the bigger you want your removal to be. The bigger your creatures, the smaller you want your removal to be, just as a general guideline. So I actually think I'm going to take the gift. I'd be really happy, I think, to play red-green with what we have. Not committing to it by any means. Destructive Digger is just a medium card. If we see the best card in this next pack is black, black's still an option, as we do see. Sanitarium Skeleton. Mammoth Spider is an excellent blocker, especially if we're going to play a green-red ramp deck that we're going to try and win late games with. But a Skeleton is good with Splinters, great in this format in general, grind. So I think, personally, Skeleton's just enough better that we take it here, and then we just continue seeing what comes, whether it's green or black, to pair with our red. Epicure of Blood is not a card I care about unless I'm Black-White Life Drain, or I have Sorin because it's a vampire. So I'm not going to take that here. This is either Gifts or Veil. While you don't want multiple, too many gifts, I could play 2. This is just picking up our second pretty early. Veil is a powerful sideboard card, so I think I'm going to grab that here. Speaking of powerful sideboard cards, there's Plummet. Overcome could also be good, though. This is best of 3, so even if we're not an aggro deck, we can board it in against other decks looking to play long games. And we already have Scampering Scorcher now that makes 3 1/1s, so we can prioritize pups, and then Leafkin Druid's good with creatures that go wide, Scampering Scorcher is good with creatures that go wide, and so is Overcome. So I think we're going to grab Overcome. And there we tabled the pup. It does look like we're seeing green. If anything, we're seeing green and black, but we're going to stick with red because we have 3 good cards already. So we're going to take Ferocious Pup here. We're going to look to draft green-red. Yes, there's black coming. It does feel like we're not seeing white and blue. It feels like basically in order we're seeing green the most, black the second most, and red the third most. But I think that's still worth playing red given the high quality of our red cards here. So I think we're committed to green-red, which is unfortunate. The best card in this pack, of course, is Cavalier of Gales. This one is busted. Cavalier of Flame, don't get me wrong, I don't want to undersell it. That's a first pick. That's a good first pick. But Cavalier of Gales, with the drawing cards when it comes into play, means even if they have removal, you go up cards and multiple cards. You draw 3, put 2 back, and then they kill it, and you get to scry. So this card is just... and it goes back in your deck, which the other ones don't do. So this card is finding you... it's putting you up cards even when they have removal, helping you find it again, or just find your other power cards. It's just great. But it's triple blue. We're not going to try and cast it. Our deck has good synergy, good curve, and our red cards are really good. It's not like these are medium red commons. We have a good red mythic, a good red uncommon, and one of the better red commons here. So I think this is a pick between just Smuggler and Mammoth Spider, 2 mediocre cards that will both almost assuredly make our main. I think our deck is still looking to go wide and to close with closers, not necessarily win through aggression. So I think Mammoth Spider is actually the pick here. Okay, and now there's 2 green cards I like a lot in this pack. We're definitely going to take Shifting Ceratops. It's just an undercosted card designed for standard. It's not too broken. If your opponent's not blue, it's a 4-mana 5/4 with a few nice abilities. But the fact that you can give it haste is a big deal. Haste and trample. Once you have enough mana, can swing a race. Reach means it can block flyers. This card should just cost about 1 more, and it would still be a good limited card. At 4, it's clearly costed for standard. But I do want to talk about Wolf Rider's Saddle a little bit. This card is better than it looks, along with Ancestral Blade. The problem with those types of equipment traditionally is you're going down a card to play them. But a Grizzly Bear, like Ancestral Blade, a 2-mana 2/2 when it comes into play, or Wolf Rider's Saddle, which is a Hill Giant, a 4-mana 3/3 the turn it comes into play, is not going down a card. They're just slightly below average creatures, but you can trade them off and use them profitably. So they're not too slow, they're not going down a card. Additionally, unlike the living weapons, these don't make 0/0s. They make 1/1s and 2/2s, which means you can immediately move the equipment if you want to. You don't have to trade it off first and then re-equip it to something else. You can just move the equipment, get in a good attack, move the equipment back. So Wolf Rider's Saddle is a real overperformer from how it looks. It's still not as good as Shifting Ceratops, but it is a nice card, and you should take it aggressively. Okay, speaking of nice cards, there are none for us in this pack. Sky Knight Vanguard and Fenlurker are like the only good cards in the pack. I'm going to take the opportunity to grab a red-green dual land. We're positioned to be able to splash, even though we don't have anything we want to splash. We already have a Gifts of Paradise, so now we can pick up an on-color dual land, should we want to. And speaking of which, Blood for Bones is the best card in this pack, and a card I would happily splash, except there's a shock, so there's no need to be taking splash cards. This is how you keep your splash down. You don't just take a card like Blood for Bones that's a little better than a shock so that you can splash it because it's a little better and you have the gift in the dual land. Now, if shock wasn't in this pack, you take the Blood for Bones over something like Netcaster probably. But with a card as good as shock, you don't have to splash. You can keep your splash color down or not existing and take the good on-color common. This way, when the packs have good cards for you like shocks, you end up with 2-color decks. When they don't, you end up positioned to splash stuff like Blood for Bones instead of having to play bad cards in your deck. Sedge Scorpion is fine, nothing special, a clear pick out of that pack. Woodland Champion is really nice. This card is another card that's a lot better than it looks. 2-mana 2/2 doesn't need a ton of upside. If you play a Pup on turn 3, it makes a token. Now you've got a 2-mana 3/3 you put out. If you play a Scampering Scorcher, it makes 2. Now you've got a 4/4. You can prioritize the token making the whole time, but you only need to make 1 token after you play Champion to have it turn into a really good 2-drop. A 2-mana 2/2 is not something you'd play in every deck, but a 2-mana 3/3 is a good 2-drop. So here we have a choice between a good sideboard card, Reckless Airstrike, and Jungle Hollow in case we want to splash. We currently have Bone Splinters. I'm not looking to toss Bone Splinters in this deck, but it would be good with Scampering Scorcher and Woodland Champ. And again, we already have the Highlands and the Gifts. We're not going to miss a sideboard card like Reckless Airstrike that much, so I think I'm going to grab the Hollow in case we do end up playing a Splash Black. So I like Pattern Matcher. It's actually one of my pet cards in the format, but we don't really have dubs yet. You prioritize them higher after you get it, and that's fine. There's a lot of different commons, but Scampering Scorcher just goes so well with Woodland Champion, so well with Overcome. And we could splash that Bone Splinters now that we have that green-black dual in our sideboard and a second Scorcher. So the Scorcher's a clear pick here, but I'm sad to not get Pattern Matcher, a card I like a lot. These cards basically don't matter. I doubt they're going to make our deck, but let's just grab them and see if we can get some good cards in Pack 3 and finish strong here. Hey, we picked up an Airstrike for the sideboard anyway. Temple of Malady, which I famously called Temple of Malady on coverage once. Probably my worst pronunciation ever, and there's a lot of bad ones. And I do think we might splash Bone Splinters because it's really good in our deck with Woodland Champion and Double Scorcher. But I'm not looking to take a black-green duel first pick here. Even one with Scry, I would definitely play it. I would play it even if I didn't splash black. I normally play the Scry lands as long as they're one color on. They don't need to be both on. But again, we're going to take a look at the rest of the pack before we do something like take a Scry land that might let us splash a Bone Splinters. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to undersell splashing Bone Splinters. We have double Scampering Scorcher and Pup. So Bone Splinters is excellent removal in the stack. So I probably do want to splash it. And I have a green-black duel already, so I'm going to have a ton of sources. I might not even have to play a single swamp, or I'm going to play one swamp. So I might take the Temple here, because the pack doesn't have anything amazing. But let's take a look at what it does have. Second Overcome, we go wide pretty well. We could definitely play 2 overruns in this deck. Oh wow, look at this card, giving all your creatures plus 1/+0, also with our go wide deck. Pumping all 3 1/1s, pumping the Pup and the 2/2 token. So Cavalier is going to be amazing in this deck. Anyways, that said, we could play another Overcome and stick with the go-wide theme. But there's Chandra's Embercat. This is a 2-mana 2/2 that taps to add a red for an elemental. It's hard to evaluate exactly how good this card is, but it's not hard to start the evaluation process. A 2-mana 2/2 is a card that you don't really want to play in this format. A 2-mana 2/2 that tapped to add a mana every turn would be a very good card. So, what are we able to cast with it? Fire Elemental, if we play it, mediocre 5, we don't really care. Cavaliers are elementals, so we can play this Cavalier on turn 4, and this adds a valuable red, not colorless, towards the triple red casting cost. Scampering Scorcher's an elemental that costs 4, and we have 2 of them. That means we can play this card on turn 3 off the Embercat. That's pretty nice. And we have the whole rest of the pack to get Lavakin Brawlers, which the other 4-mana, well, the 4-mana common elemental, this one's an uncommon, which we do want since we have Double Scorcher. I think Chandra's Embercat is going to be fantastic in our deck, and while it's a low-powered common in some decks, I think it's awesome in ours, and I'm going to take it here. Okay, we have a bit of an elemental theme, so Overgrowth Elemental should be quite good in our deck. Leafkin Druid's an elemental to pump, as is Embercat. Then we've got the 2 Scorchers and the Cavalier, Fire Elemental if we want to play it. We're not taking it over much. There's Goblin Ringleader. We don't really have goblins. There's not a lot of them, just Smuggler here. So this is a pretty clear pick for us. And a nice pickup. Okay, so now there's another Elemental, Spitfire. Now, it only triggers when you deal damage directly to them. I mean, we could shock them to give it +3, but that's not a particularly strong play unless we're lethaling them out of nowhere or something. But it is a cheap flyer, all around a pretty solid card. But I think this is an opportunity to get another ramper. We want to make sure we have triple red for Cavalier. We want to be able to cast Cavalier on turn 4. That's just awesome. Scuttlemutt taps to add a mana of any color. So it can add a red. It can help us ramp. And a 3-mana 2/2 that adds mana is still a pretty good card. So even though we're doing a little bit of an elemental theme here, we should have something to pump with Overgrowth. I think Scuttlemutt's a better card for us than Spitfire. So we are not black. If we were, I would generally take Disfigure over Sorin. I think Sorin can be good if you prioritize Vamps the whole way and you get multiple Burglars, the 2-mana 2/2 lifelink Vamp. Turn 2 Burglar, turn 3 Sorin is incredible. And then you still have Barony Vampire and Epicure Blood, which are mediocre commons to play with Sorin. And as soon as you pump a creature, if your plus from your 3-mana Planeswalkers put up a 1/1 counter on one of your creatures that sticks around, and then your Planeswalker's 5 loyalty, that's an incredible card. So as long as you have a lot of vampires or the whole draft to prioritize them, Sorin can be very good. We're not black, but even if we were, if it's pack 3 and you don't have vampires yet, you shouldn't really be looking at Sorin. I would take Disfigure over it. I would also take Disfigure over Siphon. Disfigure is efficient. It's a lot better than Siphon. For us, though, we're red. We're not black. There's 2 cards to look at here, Reduced to Ashes and Lavakin Brawler. We're doing a bit of an elemental thing. We could play Lavakin Brawler turn 3 with Leafkin Druid or Embercat, and it's going to be a pretty big attacker if we play a Scampering Scorcher and get 3 elementals. That said, we don't have much good removal, and our curve is not too high, so I think this is a deck right now we can kill small creatures with shocks. We want the big removal Reduced to Ashes. Take out opposing Cavaliers, big flyers, and things that can actually win the opponent the game. Here's a pretty easy pup. We're doing a bit of a go-wide thing. It synergizes with Cavalier, with Overcome, with Leafkin Druid, with Woodland Champion. Pup is nothing special, but it's a nice pickup common for our deck. Again, our curve is still down. I'm happy to get the good big removal. We have several things that add mana. Gift, Scuttlemutt, Leafkin Druid. I'm not too worried about casting a 5 mana card in this deck. We'll usually be able to do it on turn 4. Now there's a clear shock. They do get worse in multiples, but I'm still going to play 3. Lavakin Brawler. We picked up a good elemental anyway. I like the bow, and I like Aeronaut if your red deck's aggressive. Our deck's not that aggressive, so I'm not that keen on Aeronaut in this deck. And I would play bow. I definitely would. It's good with all the shocks. It's good with all the little creatures that can attack. But Lavakin Brawler is better with our Embercat and our Elemental theme and our Double Scorcher. Okay, that's an exciting pickup. We got the Overcome back. We can definitely play 2 Overcomes in this deck. I'm just going to remove a big creature like Fire Elemental. Get ready to play 2 Overcomes. We're never going to play Ringleader. Let's grab a good sideboard card Natural End here over a bunch of other stuff we're not going to play. Kind of feel the same about Active Treason. We're not going to play it, but it's a decent sideboard card. We tabled another Lavakin Brawler. That's really fortunate. The Smuggler Lavakin Brawlers combo is pretty real. You can make it unblockable when it's a 2/4 and then attack for 5. So actually, we might play these Smugglers. We actually turned into a little more of a red-green aggro deck than I was expecting. We're not so aggressive that there's any shot we're going to play Active Treason or Maniacal Range, but I'm going to put stuff like Uncaged Fury in and really take a look at what we have here. I thought this was going to end up being more of a ramp-style deck, but we ended up picking up double Overcome. We have a pretty low curve. So what happens if we cut Gifts? What happens if we cut Spider? Do we just have a good aggro deck now? No reason to play Loaming Shaman. We're not going through our whole deck. It's just an okay card. We only have 3 2-drops. That's not a lot for an aggro deck, but they are pretty good ones. All 3 of them add mana, or Woodland Champion can just grow. Sedge Scorpion and a bunch of shocks means we could draw first, regardless of whether we consider ourselves attacking or not. As long as we have enough turn 1 red sources to shock any 2-drop the opponent plays, we're not going to get run over. We can always turn it. So what that means, we can probably play 16 land. The only thing is we probably want a lot of green and red because we're looking to shock, and then we have like Leafkin Druid. And that said, our mana fixing, our mana production isn't really green. I mean, we're not going to play the Gifts in this deck, I don't think. So maybe we just do that. That gives us 8 green, 9 red. And then we're 1 card over. We could cut Meteor Golem if we're going to play 16 lands. We've got Leafkin to add 2 mana, though, as well as Scuttlemutt. So we probably don't want to cut Meteor Golem. There's not really anything we want to cut. We could cut Uncaged Fury. Do we have Tramplers? It's pretty good with Shifting Ceratops. It's not actually good with Overcome because that's 8 mana. I don't think we need Uncaged Fury, especially if we're going to choose to draw. Combat Tricks get the worst on the draw. So 16 land, a pretty aggressive deck, but I'm going to choose to draw because we're going to go with 1 less land because we can get away with it with 3 shocks and a Sedge Scorpion. We've got the Smuggler, Lavakin Brawler combo. We've got Overcomes to close with. I like it. No thoughts on splashing the Bone Splinter. The reason for that is because we picked up those 2 Reduced to Ashes. The reason to splash it would have been so that we can deal with a few, like a big thing, but Reduced to Ashes deals with almost everything. So I think we ended up with pretty good synergy. 3 shock, 2 Reduced to Ashes is nice removal. We should be able to play a good game, whether take out a key flyer or 2, take out a Risen Reef or something like that, and then just keep attacking and Overcome for the win. It might sound counterintuitive to draw first with an aggro deck, but the reality is drawing first in Limited is not really about whether you're attacking or not. You can attack on a turn later. It's about, are you going to get run over? Is your deck going to be too slow? And if you're not going to get run over and you're not going to run over the opponent, then, which most decks are not going to, because most decks are just different shades of mid-range. And we use the term aggressive. And this deck is on the aggressive side, but it's still more of a mid-range deck than it is a mono-red modern deck or something. This is a creature deck with removal. Okay, speaking of, I'm going to keep this. It's a one-lander, but we've got Double Shock and Leafkin Druid, so we're like one forest away from basically casting everything. If we get stuck on one, they shouldn't run us over when we have Double Shock. We're on the draw. This is exactly why I draw first. If we were on the play, I would have to mulligan this hand. You can't keep a one-lander on the play. You have one shot to hit land 2 for Leafkin Druid. On the draw, we can keep this one-lander, because we have 2 shots to hit Leafkin Druid, and if we hit that, now we can cast Pup, and if we hit that, we can probably cast our whole hand. So this is another reason as to why you draw first. Now, that's a creature that's good enough. I'm just going to shock now. I don't want it to end up living. If they play a 2-2, I can block it with Druid. I know they can't draw cards yet, but I don't need them to unsummon it in response. I just want to get, or use a growth cycle when they attack. I just want to get that out of there. That's a really scary creature. First pickable on common. 1-mana 1/1 flyer is good on turn 1. It'll deal a lot of damage. But then also, this is a card that wins you stalemates and wins you the late game. The problem with 1-mana 1/1 flyers is that there's such bad draws in the mid to late game. But this is a card that's a great draw in the late game and a great play on turn 1. So that makes the math pretty easy. It's just an awesome Magic card. I'm going to play the Scorcher here. Even though the haste is wasted, it gives me 4 creatures. Now I can tap the Druid for 2 mana. Nothing was going to be able to attack through that Denizen before I overcome. So it looks like they're trying to do a mill thing, though. That means I don't mind sacking a 1/1 in shock to take out a Denizen. I don't want to throw away creatures too frivolously when I have an overcome. So we'll see what we draw this turn. If I draw land 6, I can play Pup and Scuttlemutt, so I'll probably just do that and pass, preparing to overcome next turn. If I don't draw land 6, I'll probably attack with 1/1/1. Then if they block, I can shock it and then play like Pup. If they don't block, cool. So I did draw land 6. So yeah, I think I'm just going to dump my hand here. I'm not going to get decked. I'm going to overcome next turn. So we should be good then. We have 7 creatures out. We're going to have to tap the Druid overcome if we don't draw a forest. But that's still 6 attackers. That looks pretty strong. And none of their creatures are big enough to stop anything after an overcome. Except maybe an 0/1 Pup, and even then I'll be able to finish off a Denizen with shock, potentially. So, here we go. Even though they're at 20 and this is not lethal, we want to do this before we start trading off creatures. Now they can double block something. We'll finish it off with, we'll kill one of their creatures. We can, whatever, maybe one of the 2/3s will block the Pup. Like their most likely block is both 2/3s on like a 4/4 and then 2/3 on Pup. So then what I'll do is trade with one of their creatures, shock away the 2/3 that blocked Pup, and then we have Reduce to help clear the way for the future. We're taking out a Denizen, so that slows down the decking process. So basically we want to play Overcome here before we start losing creatures. Because remember, our creatures are pretty small. I did make one really small mistake there. And honestly, it's not definitely a mistake because we don't find out they have on summon until we pass priority to them, that they don't. If they had on summon, though, they would on summon this 4/4, so we know they don't have it. But I have to pass to them, and then they on summon the 4/4, and they didn't on summon it because they don't have it. They just passed, and then damage resolved. What I was going to say was if we knew for a fact they didn't have on summon, at least, we could definitely shock this eagle before damage. 2 to it, and then the Pup does 2, 1 to the eagle and 1 to the opponent, so we get in 1 more point of damage. So the small mistake I made was not shocking the eagle before damage. And I probably should, because if they on-summon their own eagle, they're taking the trample damage, they're falling further behind. If they on-summon the Pup, the eagle lives, but I get to replay the Pup. So that was probably a small mistake. Okay, I'm just going to reduce their only creature here. If this resolves, we can attack with all the small ones. They should end up getting swarmed out. And we have the Smuggler to help the swarm / finish them next turn as well anyway. Good start. Hope every game goes like that. So we saw Empyrean Eagle. That's all, but blue-white has a ton of flyers. I think boarding in Reckless Strike makes a ton of sense. I don't think we saw anything for Nature's End. I don't think we need Mammoth Spider because they're trying to deck us with Sage Road Denizens potentially, and we're an aggro deck. Even though blue is one of the colors for this, Hexproof is more useful against black. Blue doesn't have that many ways to target. We didn't see Sleep Paralysis or On Summon. All the cards in our deck are good. Remember how hard that last cut was? Airstrike's definitely coming in against a blue-white deck where we saw Empyrean Eagle because that pumps other flyers too. But I have no idea what we're even going to cut. We can't cut our early plays. We could definitely cut a Smuggler. We could cut Smuggler, Overcome, or Meteor Golem. I think on the draw against flyers, I'm just going to cut Meteor Golem. It could be a little slow. I don't necessarily expect a stalemate here. They don't have removal that much in blue-white, so Overcome should finish game successfully. If I was playing against like a black-red deck and I saw a bunch of removal spells, I might board out the second copy of Overcome and keep in the Meteor Golem, try and win a more grindy game. But against a blue-white flyers deck, we just want to make sure we can win races, slow them down with Airstrike, Overcome for the win. Okay, another fine hand. Nothing special, but we have both kinds of mana. We're on the draw because the opponent chose to play, and we got these shocks. Also, the Overgrowth can pump the Leafkin. It's nice. You still want to use it for mana a lot of the time, but I'll take a 1/4 instead of an 0/3. Quietly an elemental. Okay, we want to shock that on sight because otherwise the rest of their flyers cost 1, and this turn is easy because the Leafkin taps to add mana. We don't really care if we're attacking with it for 1 or not. So we can play our 3-drop, end our shock, keep the board clear, not let the opponent play Boreal Elemental for 4 mana this turn, grow our Leafkin, basically everything you could ask for out of a turn of Magic. Speaking of, so if I didn't draw Scuttlemutt, I would have just reduced that and attacked for 3. But now I think I can just attack with both. I don't have that many elementals to be dying. I do kind of want to trade with Sage Road Denizen. Milling is a thing they're trying to do. And then post-combat, if they block the Druid, I'll shock the Denizen. If they block the Overgrowth, they'll trade and I'll get in my 1. And then I'll play Scuttlemutt. We're probably not going to overcome until later in this game anyway. If we can keep the board clear so we can keep attacking, that has value. And the opponent elected not to block. Remember, a big part of what Overgrowth does is pumping something when it comes into play. At this point in the game, they maybe could trade with Overgrowth there, and I wouldn't love it because I have Overcome in hand. But honestly, I don't expect this Overgrowth to grow very much. So I'm not afraid to trade it off, let's say. What I am going to do is play aggressive because I have an Overcome in my hand. So if I can get a damage, that's pretty strong. So now I'm going to reduce the Denizen just so I can attack them for 6. We already have 12 damage in play with Overcome. Overcome is 2 times the number of creatures you have out. So if they don't play at least a 3 toughness creature, we're threatening lethal. But if they do, we can still Overcome. If it forces them to chump block and go to like 2, that's great for us. So they played a combined 4 toughness, but we also drew shock. This is pro-red, but none of our creatures are red. They have 2 power, which means that's not enough to kill any of these after we Overcome. And we're going to have a minimum of 3 power, which is enough to kill the Daybreak Chaplain. So that makes this a really strong Overcome turn. They now have to basically chump with the Chaplain and fall to like 2. The Cerulean Drake would only absorb 1 point of toughness, so that makes no difference. So Overcome just dealt a ton of damage and killed their Chaplain. They would be in literal lethal range right now, except the Drake can counter shock, but they're still pretty much dead, because now what I'll do is shock them. They'll sack the Drake. No, and if they sack the Drake, they take 3 on board. If they don't sack the Drake, they're at 1. They take 1 on board. So now they're dead unless they have on summon. We can't shock the Drake because it's pro-red, but we can just shock them pre-combat here. We could have attacked first, I guess, to see if, because if they don't have on summon, I guess they chump Scuttlement and go to 2, and then we could shock post-combat. I mean, we knew they didn't have on summon from the previous turns. I guess there's some shot they just top decked it. So that was a little hasty. Probably should have attacked first. Let them chump and go to 2 and then shock them. This way, if they do have on summon, we don't burn our shock. I mean, we couldn't really lose, and shocking away a Cerulean Drake there isn't exactly burning it, because they still have to sack the Drake to counter it to live, or chump with the Drake. So it's hardly a big deal, but yeah, we probably should have attacked first. I just could start around 2 here without really thinking about it. This is a draw first stack. You can immediately see how I wish I had drawn. We're not going to get run over. But I do need to find land 3, so I'd like to have an extra draw step on each of my turns to do that. Luckily, it doesn't look like we're going to get punished too bad. Now with the Leafkin Druid, we can at least cast Overgrowth. But sometimes I just robotically click play, especially if I've been playing a lot of Constructed. But in this case, that was kind of an accident. Drawing first would have been the right play. We don't have enough mana here to double spell, so I'm pretty happy to play the more expensive one. Attack with both. The Leafkin's just going to bounce with the Sprite, but just in case they want to trade it with the Scorpion, I don't want to miss a point, so that's why I sent both creatures. And look, they did want to trade the Sprite for the Scorpion. Maybe they have something bigger to play or something like that, so we got in a point of damage that we miss otherwise. Okay, similar to last turn, I'm perfectly happy to trade Overgrowth for Netcaster, so there's no reason to miss a point. We'll just attack with both. Drop our champion. Now we're nowhere near this triple red. We do have 9 red sources, and we do have some ways to, other than that, to produce red. Scuttlemutt, Chandra's Emperor Cat, but we're a ways away from this Cavalier. If we draw a single red, though, we can start smuggling in our Woodland Champion for now, dealing a little bit of damage here. Ouch, and now they have a Dungeon Geist to slow us down. So we're not going to chump, but we are going to reevaluate next turn what we want to do. So we can smuggle in a Smuggler, but then we don't have blocks up in the Thicket Crasher. So the question is, do we want to race? Since we have a powerful, potentially game-winning 5-drop that we're now 1 red away from, I don't think we do. So I would rather just make a double block, even if it's risky. If they bounce or pump their creature and eat my little creatures, I can still potentially win this game with Cavalier. Just kind of want to slow this party down so I have time to cast Cavalier or to draw Overcomes. So we're definitely double blocking here with these two. We're only losing 1. We're saving damage. We're not dying as quickly. I don't know why they tapped out for Serpent first. It's not a bad attack by them. Just do it with your mana up so your opponent's more scared in general. But it's fine. We were going to block anyway. So we could attack with both and then reduce Serpent if they block. But I think I would rather just get rid of the Flyer. If they sink their mana into the Serpent every turn, we should be able to race them. We don't have a profitable block on this Serpent. We're not going to chump at 14. So we might as well not miss a point and smuggle in the Druid for 1 anyway. Now, in future turns, this champion will untap. If we draw Scampering Scorcher or Pup, that's a decent draw. If we draw Overcome, that's a decent draw. If we draw Mountain, that's a decent draw. So we have a lot of pretty good draws in this deck. Forest is a really bad draw, but other than that, almost anything is going to be useful for us. We won't get to use this ability, discard any number of cards and then draw that many, because, well, we're not going to have any cards in hand. But that's okay. We're getting out of 6/5. As far as attacking or blocking, this got tapped for a turn. It's not like Dungeon Geist. It's going to untap regardless of whether we trade with the Frostlinks or not. There's not really any reason for us to trade Woodland Champ for Frostlinks. Hopefully they don't have Bone Dash as the last card in their hand, but we're definitely casting our Cavalier. It's not doing any good in our hand. We need to try and get it in play. You might think to yourself, well, they left 4 up. They almost definitely have it. Well, they have 1 card in hand. It could be a Bone Dash, or it could just be an Anticipate. That's why we put our Cavalier out. Now we can use the 1 red ability and pump our team and take over the board potentially. Well, the opponent's got something to say about that. They just put out a 5/5 and 2/2/2s. So, where are we at? When it dies, it does damage to each opponent, each planeswalker with number of lands in our graveyard. That's cute. We don't have lands in our graveyard. How would they get there? So ultimately, if we trade this off for their Howling Giant, we lose the ability. We don't want that. On the other hand, what we can do is use the Smuggler combo to deal a bunch of damage. We can have the 6/5 back to block. What we can do now is smuggle this Woodland Champion through, potentially. Because we can't attack with it on smuggled, it'll just block it with a random 2/2. And then we can go like pump. 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 And hit for 5. You may say this is an aggressive play and that I'm probably going to lose to this like Frilled Sea Serpent and this race, and you'd probably be right. But remember, they could pay 7 here, attack with the Serpent, and just hold back their other 4. So if I'm not attacking, I'm taking 4 a turn and potentially dying in 2 to 3 turns. Well, 3 turns from the Serpent anyway. I can't stop their ability to race me. But if they go for an alpha, this Giant doesn't have trample. I can put the Cavalier in front of the Serpent. I can put the Druid in front of the Giant. If they pay 7 and go for an alpha, I can put the Cavalier in front of the Frostlings. I can chump block like with the Leafkin on the Giant or something, and then untap and kill them. So I have to try and race, because I have to race the Serpent. Otherwise, I'm just sitting around losing to it. So yes, they could have forced me to chump with Druid potentially, but then I might kill them on the backswing. So nothing really changed, except I have an Ember Cat I want to cast, and that'll give me an additional blocker. So I'm just going to smuggle the Champion, pump it as much as I can. I can give the Ember Cat haste by pumping it, but that's not changing anything. I don't want to trade my 2/2s for theirs. I'd rather have creatures in play, because if a single one gets through, I can deal them a lot with it with Cavalier, plus I have 2 Overcomes in my deck. So we'll pump. This time I am going to use the Leafkin to pump, I think, as long as I'm not dying. I'm going to end up with, what, 2 blockers. I would take exactly 6 and die, so I cannot pump anymore. I have to have 3 blockers up. So it looks like I can only hit for 4. In fact, I think I might have needed 4 blockers up, because if they make this unblockable, I have to block all their creatures or I die. So I actually just punted pretty bad. I left myself dead on board. They could have just tapped 7 to the Frilled Sea Serpent, put me to 2, and then attacked with all 4 creatures, and I only have 3 blockers. Now, don't get me wrong. It's definitely wrong to leave myself dead, because I could have played to a 2-outer for 2 Overcomes, if nothing else. But if I don't smuggle this Woodland Champion, or smuggle something in attack, I'm dealing them no damage. They just pay 7 to hit me with the Serpent to 2, pass a turn back to me. And then I'm just on like a 2-outer Overcome or Meteor Golem, so 3 outs, because Meteor Golem kills Frilled Sea Serpent. So I did punt. It would have been better to play for, like, let's say 3, maybe 4 outs than it is to just leave myself dead on board. The opponent missed it, though, so now I have lethal, because now I can smuggle the champ, pump it 3 times, and deal them 5. So the punt actually worked out in my favor. I'm not saying it was right, though, depending on the skill of your opponent. Sometimes you may want to go for a win like that rather than give yourself a 3-outer. That's just something you have to judge. I missed it. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm not claiming I did. But I was in a losing position. I didn't throw away a game I was winning with that attack that left me dead on board. They would have, if I just don't attack there, they pay 7, hit me with the Serpent down to 2. I have 5 attackers to their 4 blockers. They're still at 9. I'm dead to the Serpent the following turn. So I have like 2 Overcomes and a Meteor Golem to draw, maybe something else, or I lose. So I did play wrong and leave myself dead rather than give myself like a 3-outer potentially, but I was in a losing position to that Serpent. So it actually kind of worked out. All right, we didn't see blue things that target on Summon or Sleep Paralysis. We didn't really see anything to Natural End. I don't think I'm going to change much. They did have Dungeon Geists, so I probably want to bring in a Reckless Airstrike. Granted, I didn't really see any other artifacts or any other blue flyers. Oh, no, I did. I saw the Seer and I shocked it. So that's a second target for Reckless Airstrike. So I'll definitely bring that in. And then again, we can board out something kind of slow. One of our worst cards like Smuggler. We're on the draw, so we probably don't really need Scuttlemutt. Overcome looks good. They don't really have removal. Oh, but I want the extra red, too, towards Cavalier. Yeah, I think Smuggler's just the cut. Even though Smuggler can do work like it did that game against Blue-Green, we also have double Overcome in Cavalier, Meteor Golem, plenty of other ways to win. So I do think Smuggler is the cut. Could take out a shock if it doesn't line up that well with things, but actually I forgot we saw like Metropolis Sprite and Cloud Conceer against them. So shock has targets, airstrike has targets. Okay, not a great hand of two-lander on the draw here with some expensive stuff, but I'm still going to keep. We have a lot of good draws in this deck now. We know that we can draw any of our cheap cards or lands. So that means there's 14 lands and 33 cards, as well as 3 shocks, and airstrike, and sedge scorpion, and leafkin druid, and ember cat. And this is why you go on the draw. On the play, I would probably mulligan this exact same hand. I didn't choose, the opponent chose, but let's pretend I chose to play and I drew 7-drop, 1 3-drop creature, mountain forest in this hand. I'd probably have to mull this on the play and keep it on the draw. That's why drawing first provides this subtle advantage in limited that's hard to see. Here I'm just going to trade. I don't need the life gain from this Overgrowth Elemental. All I want to do is live. It's counterproductive to trade with Overcome, but I've got a 5/4, I've got a removal, and then a powerful 7-mana card, and I'm now up to 5 lands. So I'm more than happy to just trade this off and try and play for the long game. And actually, now that I have a 5/4 to stop either of their creatures, I'm going to attack, because both their creatures are better than this Overgrowth, I think. So even though a stalemate favors me, so does the trade. And the reason for that is because I'm trying to clear the way for the Ceratops to be able to attack. And they could double block it with a 2/3 and a 3/3 green creature, because it's just a 5/4. It doesn't gain first strike or death touch. Now they have to put on another creature to be able to double block it, and then I can always use removal. So ultimately, I think the reason to make that trade is to clear the way so my Ceratops can attack, even though I have Overcome in hand. And again, this is a really good Overcome deck. I make a lot of tokens and stuff. I'll find an Overcome later for the win. For right now, I want to be able to keep attacking with a 5/4. I can't reduce the Barkhide Troll. They pay a mana and give it hexproof, but I can reduce the Overgrowth. They don't even get the life. Hit them for 5. That puts them closer to Overcome range. Next turn, we've got Pup. If we draw a land and 2 cards, we have Golem, and then we should be able to ride Overcome for the win after that. I would say this game is looking quite good. I wouldn't be shocked if they have some kind of a pump here. They are a Season of Growth deck, and they missed a land drop, and we know they're holding all spells. So I'm actually going to cast the Pup pre-combat. If it resolves, I'm not going to attack. I don't want them to play Growth Cycle, draw a card when they're missing land drops, eat my 5/4 when I have Meteor Golem and Overcome. I'm just going to strand the opponent's mana for now. So if I knew it was that one, I would have probably attacked, because I would take that trade. But again, I don't really mind. If they tap out for a 5-drop, I've got Meteor Golem for the Troll. If they leave their mana up, I can always Meteor Golem the Feral Invocation, shrinking it back down. And though I made that early trade because it allowed me to get in that attack with Ceratops, I am not looking to trade off creatures as we get closer to Overcome. So now the opponent had the counterspell, so now we have to make a decision. If we attack with Ceratops and trade it for Troll, our Overcome gets worse. It helps clear the way for other creatures, though. Like right now, if we Overcome, this 2/2 would turn into a 4/4. It can't even attack into the Barkhide Troll. So I think this is a good trade for us. Even though it weakens our Overcome at the moment, we kind of need that Troll off the board, and then hopefully we'll draw Scampering Scorcher, or we can just build up a good board in a stalemate. Remember, we're still at 20. Kind of funny keeping the 2-lander and ending up a little flooded, but we're a 16-land deck. Hopefully we'll stop drawing lands. We've got 2 Scampering Scorchers. We've got another Pup. Plenty of decent creatures in there to draw. Ask and you shall receive. Still can't attack this turn, but the 2/2's on tapping. Now we have 5 creatures again. If they don't drop something fat here like Frilled Sea Serpent, we definitely have an Overcome. If they do, we might not, but if after they attack us with the Serpent, we will. And we're not in that big of a hurry. We're still at 17. So now if we Overcome, it doesn't do nearly enough. Serpent eats the 2/2. They take like potentially up to 11. We definitely want to wait a turn. They'll probably attack with the Sea Serpent, given all we have out are 1/1s and 2/2s. If they don't drop another big creature, then we'll have a good Overcome. Oh, they shrunk their own serpent so it couldn't attack. They did that to draw a card and look for creatures to play because they're holding it back. Totally reasonable. But again, we're looking to draw spells. We're looking, if we draw a Scorcher, it even has haste. We can play it and overcome and just have a massive attack. If we draw a Lavakin Brawler, that can attack. It would have 6 power and could attack into the Sea Serpent. As is, we can't really do anything about this. If they hold the 4/6 back, we don't have a good enough overcome. It's not overrun, and it's just not that powerful right now. The 4/6 would eat the 4/4, and they would take up to 11, which is not lethal and just not accomplishing enough. Now that they played Howling Giant, this game is kind of slipping away. Not going to chump yet because we're still not dead next turn to the Flyer and the Serpent. And we can always chump the Giant. It doesn't have Trample. See what we draw here. But yeah, this game is definitely slipping away now. Okay, so the only thing I can think of is if we can take a lot and try and sneak in exactly lethal somehow. Let's say the 0-1 goes on the 5/5, our smallest on their biggest. We're taking 4, 6, 8, 10. So we have to block at least one more. Of course, we're inclined to trade 2/2s, but let's just imagine we put a 1/1 and do some counting. We're going to have 1, 3, 4. This makes 10. That's not lethal, not even that close. If we draw Smuggler, that's +4, that's 12, or that's 14. Still not lethal, and we need to deal 17. If we draw Scampering Scorcher, that has 3 creatures in haste, so we might have a 1-outer at least to win the game. But if we draw that, we're going to have way more than lethal anyway, I think, so we might as well just trade 2/2s, I guess. So if we 0-1 on 5/5 and 2/2 on 2/2, and then we take the other 4, 6, 7, 9. Oh, we'll die, so we have to block again. So in that case, it might be close. We're not winning unless we lethal them, so I'm going to go ahead and put 1/1s on the 2/2s. I'm going to block the minimum we can block here. Oh, wait, I forgot they're attacking with that 4/6. They didn't make it unblockable. So 0-1 on 5/5, 1-1 on 4/6. Now we're taking 2, 4, 6, 8, not lethal. And then if we top deck Scampering Scorcher, we can win. If we top deck Smuggler, it might be super close. 2, 4, 5, 6 plus 8 is 14. That's nowhere near enough. So we have to draw Scampering Scorcher, and then it's close. So we blocked the minimum we could because if we don't kill the opponent this turn, we're dying. We're not overcoming this board. Okay. Another land, not going to do it. Super flooded. It is what it is. So, still didn't really see anything to natural end. Don't think there's actually anything to change. I think we just got flooded. I'm happy to try and race. We have double overcome. We've got pretty good removal with the reduces and the shocks and all of that. Happy to put the opponent on the play. Their deck's kind of slow. I'm not going to take out Meteor Golem. We can kill Howling Giant or Frilled Sea Serpent with it. Hopefully things just don't line up that well for the opponent again. Okay, another hand that I would probably keep this on the play, but it would be much dicier on the play. I'm extremely happy to have an extra draw step every turn to find Forest towards Pup, or even if it's another mountain towards Brawler. Worth noting, we saw a Convolute last game. So even though we have the Airstrike and the Shock, and we don't know if the Airstrike could end up dead, we saw Seer, we saw Dungeon Geists. I think I'm going to shock that here on curve. Airstrike's a sorcery, and then on tap and play Pup. Because, again, if I don't shock that now, when am I going to? I have 3 mana for Pup, 4 mana for Brawler. So it could be a long time before I'm able to shock that Sprite away. Also, Dungeon Geist is such a powerhouse card, and they're scrying, so there's more risk that they'll find it because they're scrying and they're able to top their best cards, bottom their weaker ones. So they probably have Feral Invocation, no need to block here. Most likely they'll follow it up post-combat with Dungeon Geist or a decent blocker, we'll see. Okay, so we are assuming that they have Feral Invocation or they wouldn't make that attack. It could be Growth Cycle. If I attack with Brawler here, it's a 3/4. That means they can block, play it, and they'll bounce, or they can take it. If they block, play it, and they bounce, I can finish it off with Strike, so that's really good for me. If they take it, I have Overcome and another creature to play, so that's fine too. I'm not going to send the 2/2 and have them block an Invocation, though. And I'm not going to play Airstrike into their open mana here. Okay, again, I'm happy to try and race. I've got Overcome. Unless they're going to play Dungeon Geist or something like that. I feel pretty good about an Overcome this turn. 5 attackers. Should be a lot of damage. Unless they have On Summon, we should be pretty good here. So Airstrike is for post-combat on the Sprite. There's not like a Force Spike. There's no need to play them out first. If they eat an 0/1 with the Thicket Crasher, if I don't have lethal, who cares? It's just an 0/1. We've got, this is going to pump itself 5, 9, 13, 15 damage now, taking the opponent all the way down to 2 if they want to block a Pup, which means we can then kill them with a Shock. Also possibly just Swarming. We used 1 Shock, but we still have 2 more. Plus we have a Smuggler left in the deck that's also lethal. So as you can see, that was pretty strong. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Sprite because they need to have blockers now. If they have Dungeon Geist, it's still pretty much a stalemate anyway. And if they had that, I think they would have already played it. So part of why they made the block and went down to 2 is because they had the healer to go back up to 5. Again, though, that's fine. That's another nice draw. And if they are holding Feral Invocation, let's map out what happens. Because I do believe they still are. Maybe they bluffed it, but probably not. We can reduce the Crasher. It's not going to live. And then what happens if we attack with all of our creatures? Not the Pup. The Lavakin Brawler is a 3/4. So the Lynx can get Invocationed and eat it. And then the healer chumps a 2/2 and they go to 1. Leaving us with 2 2/2s. Leaving them with Lynx. And they get to draw a card. That doesn't seem great. I don't think we're in a super big hurry right now. Although I guess maybe we are. They're holding spells. Could be Howling Giant. Could be Sea Serpent. The window might be closing. And we do want to put the opponent to 3 or 1 if we can. Because that turns on our Shocks and our Smuggler and things like that. So I think this is the right play. If they have Invocation, it's not great, but it's not that bad. If they don't, it's good. If they have Invocation, they can invocate the Lynx, yeah, like we thought they did, and then eat the Lavakin, or they can invocate the healer, in which case healer can eat a 2/2. Frostlings can trade with a 2/2, but now they're in shock range again. Invocation's out of their hand. Healer's just a 3/4. This game shouldn't end anytime soon with us at 15, so that means we have turn after turn to hit our outs now. Shock ends the game. We've got 2 of them. And then we have other strong draws like Meteor Golem, Cavalier, Reduced to Ashes, Smuggler, which will basically end the game, even if not this turn. Second Overcome. So getting the opponent to 2 has a lot of value. Not so much second Overcome, because that would have been lethal no matter what. But it turns on Shocks, and which we have 2 of, Smuggler, which we have 1 of, because I boarded 1 out. Yes, I know we have 3 Shocks, but 1's in the graveyard already. So they're playing really aggressively. Makes sense. Now, also, Reduced to Ashes wins us this game, which we have one of left because we used one. Scampering Scorcher wins us the game, but that's the case whether I trade off this Overgrowth or not. Overcome's going to win us this game, I feel like, no matter what. So I think we're at a point where I don't want to trade Overgrowth for Lynx here, but I'll chump with the Pup because that gets me a life from the Overgrowth, and I don't need that Pup for Overcome. Overcome is lethal no matter what. But I don't think trading this Overgrowth for their Frostlings really helps me right now. It's also pumping our Lavakin, which might give them worse blocks. Like, it doesn't at the moment, but it could. So now we're in a really close game. Again, 2 shocks to end the game. Smuggler actually doesn't end the game because I grew my Lavakin, but that doesn't make the play wrong, of course. Okay, I'm not going to be chumping with Overgrowth. If they attacked with Lynx, I would have to think. Okay, Overcome should be game. Let's do some counting. 3, plus they're both elementals, so that's 5, 8. So we have 12 points of trample. They have 6, 8, 10 toughness. Looks like they're dead. Doesn't matter how they block. 12 over 10 is 2, so they're definitely taking lethal here. Exactsies. My favorite way to win. Okay, this time I will draw. I won't just randomly misclick play. Another flawed hand, but definitely a keep. We have plenty of red cards. We have our land drops, 3-drop, 4-drop. Hopefully we'll draw shocks or forests or things that'll flesh this hand out well. But even if we don't, you're not mulliganing a hand in limited where you have a 3-drop and a 4-drop that you already have the mana to cast. This turn we now have a choice. We can Smuggler or Scuttlemutt. I think we want to get our mana production out. If we draw a forest, we may play a Hasty Ceratops if they leave counter mana up. Even if we don't draw a forest, we still can Smuggler and Druid next turn. Sure, the Smuggler might not be able to attack depending on what they do, but you generally want to get your mana production going. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1. Well, that's a scary card. Not that there's anything I can really do about it. At this point, I want to Shock Warden, and so my choices for this turn are like, I really want to get Leafkin in play, especially because I'm going to get up to 4 creatures pretty soon, and I could use all the green mana to play Ceratops and play it with haste. I really want to Shock Warden because they're stuck on lands, and they might be holding Boreal Elementals and other 5-drop flyers. So my choices this turn are either Lavakin or Ceratops plus Shock Warden, or Smuggler and Leafkin. As bad as I want to get the Leafkin in play, if I play the Ceratops here, I don't need the Leafkin out that bad, and it gets my biggest creature in play, and then I can shock the Warden. So I think that that's a pretty clear play for this turn. The Smuggler has haste later. I want to get the Leafkin out, but not that badly. Next turn I'll have 6. Now I can play Lavakin and Druid if I want to, and that looks good. So attack them for 5, which is winning the race against an attacker for 3. Plus it has reach if I have to switch gears. And now we can use all our mana again, which is the #1 goal of any turn in Limited. Well, after killing the opponent, but that's not usually possible, using all your mana. Opponent finally hits land 4 here for Chandra. That's a really scary card. Also, the Scuttlemutt gave us the ability to turn their creatures blue, which is pretty good with the Ceratops. Okay, though. So the only things we have to figure out now are exactly what we want to do. Our options are good. We have 2 elementals. This is a dinosaur, so this is a 4/4 when it attacks. So it can take out Chandra, We don't necessarily need it to. Like, we could smuggle it and use it to take out Chandra. But I wouldn't say that's something we need to make happen. We could also just let them chump block. If we're eating creatures, that's pretty good. And Chandra's not killing anything except Smuggler, which we can sandbag for a turn. So I know it looks good to remove your opponent's Planeswalker, and I probably will because this adds mana, and I don't want that ability to happen. But definitely it's not like something we have to do. But because this adds red and they're holding all spells stuck on 4 mana, I do want to remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and smuggle the Lavakin Brawler. And then Lavakin can go at Chandra, Ceratops at them. Don't need to hold the Ceratops back just to prevent 3. The Leafkin's blocking Smuggler anyway. We don't have... Yeah, we do have Cavalier to discard. I was going to say we don't have Keldon Raider to discard excess lands, but Cavalier does that too, so I'll hold the 1 mountain. And we don't need a Shock Smuggler now, of course. Leaf King can block Smuggler. We can't block their flyers this turn, but that's okay. If I have to switch gears, I will, but if not, all the better. So that makes shocking their Smuggler pretty much a no-brainer because Smuggler has the ability to make Lavakin unblockable. And our choices were either Smuggler or the 1/1 Spirit. So yeah, that doesn't change anything for me. Now, let's see. I can smuggle the Brawler, attack with both. They could double block the Ceratops, though. That doesn't really seem like it benefits me. The Ceratops is big enough to stop all of their creatures. These aren't elementals. This is only a 3/4. If they do play an elemental, I can still chump the Brawler with Leafkin Druid. So I think this turn, I don't really want to attack with Ceratops and have them double block. It seems good for me, and it would be, but it's better just to have it backstopping everything they have, I think. And I get them for 4 with the Smuggler Lavakin Brawler combo, which is pretty sweet. We have double Smuggler, double Brawler, I think. Okay, I don't know if they have anything or if they forgot this has reach. I've made that mistake. Either way, I'm going to block and find out. I'm at 8. I'm not in a position to be taking it. And I'm pro-blue, so I'm not worried about a pump spell or anything. So yeah, they most likely forgot it has reach. It happens. I made that mistake, I think, on stream once, but then I learned. So we definitely want Airstrike. We saw things it kills. Do we want Veil? Again, I didn't see on Summoner Sleep Paralysis or even counters, really. Didn't see anything for natural end either. It looks like they're more of an aggressive red deck. So I think Airstrike, yes, but that's probably about it. And then they may force some trades, and we can probably beat them with big creatures. So I think I'm going to board out 1 copy of Overcome here for game 2. Since red has removal, red, white, blue certainly could force trades when they're on the play, and also has removal. Plus, their creatures aren't that big. So I think we can most likely beat them just on the size of our Lavakins when they're attacking, and our Ceratops and things like that. Even though my creatures really aren't that big, and Overcome's pretty busted in this deck. So maybe it's a mistake to take it out. But I do have other ways to win. I've got 2 Smugglers to smuggle 2/2s in, or Lavakin Brawlers, plus the Cavalier and the Ceratops. There's a lot of power cards in this deck, too. This is a really nice deck. It really came together well, with the shocks for the early game, and then the tokens and the going wide into the Overcomes, the power cards like Shifting Ceratops and Cavalier, Meteor Golem with the Leafkin Druid. I'm really happy how this deck came together. Lots of synergies. Quiet ones, the Woodland Champion with the double Scorch or double Pup. The Leafkin Druid with the same cards so that it can add 2 mana and a 16 land deck so I can use that mana. A lot of good things going on. For now, we want to use 3 mana a lot more than 1, so of course we're going to play Pup. We can always shock the links later. Speaking of later, what's going to happen now is they're going to kill our 2/2, but we're going to shock their links and then use Scampering Scorcher with haste to attack out the Chandra. Well, they attacked, which is reasonable. They don't know we're going to have this, but so we didn't actually have to shock their links, so I won't do that. But let's see. Can we play like more things? Probably not. I think all we can really do here, we want to have shock up. I don't know why the auto tapper wants to. Oh, it's just leaving Leafkin up because it's a blocker. And maybe that's not even wrong, to be honest. There's no reason to telegraph shock. We can play it later. I think the auto tapper actually got this one right. We'll just attack all the 1/1s at Chandra. The 0/1 doesn't do anything, and the Leafkin can stay back to block the Frostlinks. Shock's not online this way, but we have plenty of mana. It's a 1 mana spell. I'm not that worried about casting it after this. And I definitely don't want to shock off that links unnecessarily. I might do it like if they pass a turn and it's their only blocker, because it's theoretically stopping 3 1/1s. But I also have better cards to play. It's not necessarily doing very much. Like if we shock off this links, we still don't have an attack. Shocking the links does nothing right now. So all I really want to do now, I think, is trade with their 2/2s, because that clears the way for my 1/1s. So what I'm going to do here is play Smuggler and actually attack with it. I know it looks weird. They're going to trade links for it, which is a good trade for them, but I'm trying to clear the board. Because now I can play Scuttlemutt, and then if they trade Ember Hauler for that, the 1/1s can start attacking. And I'd rather save Shock for some kind of good value creature or something like that, potentially. If they tap out for something, I may shock the Ember Hauler. But for now, I'm pretty happy just to let the Ember Hauler trade for a Scuttlemutt that I know I don't need. I've got all the mana I need to cast everything. Still got 1 Overcome in there to potentially win with. So I've got Ceratops, Cavalier, Overcome. So no targets for Reckless Airstrike. Probably want to kill that Weaponsmith with Shock if I can. Probably won't be able to, but if I can. So I'm just going to attack with Scuttlemutt, because if it trades with any of their 3 creatures, that's a good deal for me. If they block it with Weaponsmith, I'll get Shock to finish it off. If they block it with either of the 2/2s, these are 2/2s with abilities. I'm pretty happy about that. But now they blocked it with Weaponsmith, so I'm going to get rid of the Weaponsmith before they can start searching up Bows and Vials. Still going to hold on to 2 lands because of Red Cavalier. Even though I boarded out 1 Overcome, I'm still pretty happy to play for Stalemate. There's still 1 in there, like I said, along with Cavalier, Ceratops. It's only a 16 land deck, plenty of business in there. And we can keep attacking with Scuttlemutt. If it trades for a 2/2, that clears the way for the 1/1s. Now, there's no need to shock right now. We'll see what the opponent does. If they pass the turn back to me without adding a creature, we'll shock that Smuggler, which is basically what happened. Chandra is an incredibly powerful card. It means, if anything, we need to turn up the offense. But now we're definitely shocking Smuggler. This way we can attack Chandra for 3. Guess I could have seen if I drew Reduce for Smuggler and then still had Shock for Chandra, but it's not like it's finishing it off anyway. Definitely not going to be easy to race those emblems at the moment. So there's my airstrike target, so we're definitely going to use that. Reduce can take out anything. For now, I don't think I want to be ignoring Chandra. I think it's right to attack it. It's possible I shouldn't be, but I'm going to be able to finish it next turn, even if they play a creature now, as long as I can reduce it. So that's going to leave me with 3 emblems, which from 16 is still a lot of turns to attack them out. Plus Chandra has that removal ability, so I think what I did made sense. Though they also were holding a reduce, so goodbye Lavakin Brawler. No help there. So probably losing this game to Chandra, but also Chandra's beatable. I mean, I'm also losing this game to a lack of pressure. Might put the overcome back in knowing they have Chandra. But then again, we did see removal here. Ember Hauler reduced, Chandra, Frostlinks. Not necessarily sure that overcome is the way to go. If I have any more solid creatures, maybe I'll just put those in. What am I taking now? 4? Okay, let's see what we draw here. If I don't draw like a haste creature or something to remove Chandra this turn, I might have to ignore it and hope I can win with overcome. Got to reduce pretty much anything, even something as sad as a Goblin Bird Grabber. Hope the opponent draws lands because we can't beat anything else. If we put them to 18 plus 10, we're not going to have lethal next turn. We will have it the turn after that. We're not going to get that long. We're not going to get that long either way, though. I don't think there's anything we can do now except attack and somehow, I don't know, hope we draw a card that gains life and deals damage. We have too many emblems. I think we're just dead. 1 turn too many here. As far as playing to our outs, I'm losing indefinitely. Still didn't see any targets for airstrike except this Kaikar. So I might not leave that in. Not even any artifacts or anything. Although I guess if they have Renowned Weaponsmith, they have Bow and Vial probably. So maybe I won't take it out. Take a look at our options. Chandra changes the nature of the game, because whereas before I felt like I could play for a stalemate and almost certainly win them, now I lose to Chandra potentially. So I'd rather just have more solid creatures. Let's take a look at what our options are. As far as solid creatures and ways to attack Chandra at end games, we've got Fire Elemental. It's decent. It's an elemental, and it has 4 toughness. We can ramp it out with Ember Cat. It pumps our Lavakin Brawlers. I wouldn't want Loaming Shaman. That dies to Little Chandra. Mammoth Spider, they haven't played that many flyers. I'm just not that worried about it. I'm more worried about losing to Chandra. I have pretty good removal. I think Sedge Scorpion isn't the best here. I'm going to cut that for Fire Elemental, just make my deck a little more solid. But I'm not going to be afraid of the Planeswalkers. They're a 3-color deck. That one costs 6 mana. I'm still going to choose to draw. I'm going to assume they're not going to just curve out perfectly up to 6. I can always catch up with 3 Shocks and Airstrike, Ember Cat, and Leafkin Drawlers. Leafkin Druid, and Scuttlemutt. So I'm still going to go on the draw. This is a hand we have to mull on the draw or the play. This hand is not great, but I think we have to keep it on 6 on the draw. And then, what are we getting rid of? Maybe Overgrowth Elemental. The Woodland Champ actually combos with the Scorcher a lot more than the Overgrowth does. The Overgrowth could grow. We're not getting rid of the Mountains or the red card. Could get rid of Leafkin Druid. If we draw 1 forest, we can do like this and this and this. Maybe we get rid of Leafkin Druid. It looks really strong in this hand, but it's actually not, because if we draw a single forest, that turns on everything up to Scorcher, and then we're 1 mana away from Scorcher. This is 2 creatures, and it grows this. It's a tough call. I think it's right to get rid of Leafkin. It's possible it's right to get rid of Overgrowth. Those are basically the 2 we're choosing between. But because I really didn't want to get rid of either of the mountains, if I draw a forest, I'm only one land away from Scorcher anyway. So I kind of felt like that was right. Now, of course, if I had 3 mountains in the same hand instead of 2, I would have probably just gotten rid of mountain number 3 instead of Leafkin Druid. But if we end up not drawing a forest, we don't want to be missing land drops on our way up to Scorcher. So I would consider it if I had 3 mountains, but I would never get rid of one of the 2. Unfortunately, no green, so there's a chance we're going to take our loss here. But the opponent mulliganed 2. They didn't do anything on turn 3 except anticipate. Hopefully they don't do anything too great here. Well, while Chandra is good, I'm not sure that it qualifies as too great at this exact moment. Scorcher has haste, so we can knock it down to 3. Hopefully they don't plus it for 2 mana and then play 6 mana Chandra. But I'm not super scared of the Chandra minus to kill one of our 1/1s, and we have reduced to remove a good blocker. So we're not in horrible shape at the moment. Be nice to draw a forest, turn on our whole hand. Of course, it would have been nice to play the Woodland Champion before the Scorcher, and then it would be a 4/4, but that's not a luxury we had. Speaking of, as much as I want to play Rugged Highlands, I have to reduce the 3/3 flyer. That allows me to attack Chandra for 3 more damage. Could still draw an on-tap forest next turn anyway. If not, then we'll play the Rugged Highlands. Hopefully the opponent doesn't have much more business, or we're losing for sure. Okay, it doesn't look like they necessarily do. I don't think they have anything. And I don't want to keep trading 1 for 2, so I think I'm actually just going to send 2 at the Chandra and hold 1 back. It's important because this 1/1's going to block Bird Grabber here. And I don't really want to trade Embercat off for Bird Grabber because I have Overgrowth, so I can pump it into a 3/3 and then it can attack past it. Second little Chandra. Opponent's got a nice Chandra squad. So there goes the 2/2, but that Chandra's not unbeatable here by any stretch. So if we play Smuggler and Alpha at Chandra, it dies. If they don't have anything, they get to trade off with Smuggler. That's okay. We could also Overgrowth one of the 1/1s, but then that's just the one they block with Bird Grabber. Oh, wait, I've got it. So we could Overgrowth a 1/1, smuggle that one, so the 2 is hitting Chandra, and then the other 2 1/1s can attack Chandra to finish it off. Then we don't lose our 2/2. So that looks really good. Assuming they don't have anything, this works really well. We get to kill Chandra, and we don't lose our Smuggler, our 2/2, or any of our best creatures. We smuggle the 2/2 here, and then send all three creatures at Chandra. And most of our board are elementals, so if they draw 6 mana Chandra, it's not great for us, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, if they give us an emblem, we got a lot of small attackers. They can't use the minus, it would just kill only Smuggler. If they want to minus it and kill Overgrowth or Smuggler, that's fine. I mean, look, it's a powerful card, but it's beatable, is what I'm saying. If they attack, I'm not going to trade off Overgrowth for Bird Grabber. I'll just take 2 and then swing back. Certainly a race we can win. So now we're going to dump our hand, Woodland, and then Pup to grow it. We don't want to trade Overgrowth for Bird Grabber, but any of the others for Bird Grabber would be fine. It even helps the Overgrowth to be able to attack. So I'm going to send the other 3 here. They're all elementals, so if they want to trade with the 2/2, I'll get a life and Overgrowth grows by 1. And then we definitely have to just dump our hand. If they have 6 mana Chandra, they can take out like Woodland, Champ, and Pup, but we'd still keep Overgrowth, Scorcher in the 1/1. We'd gain some life, we'd attack it out, move about our business. Okay, so the 3/3 stops everything but Woodland Champ. Whoa, but we drew Scampering Scorcher. So this gives haste to the 1/1s, and it grows the champ. So we're definitely playing it pre-combat. And I think I'm just going to attack with everything, even though they have a lot of life. 3/3 is eating a 2/2, but then the 1/1 flyer can trade with a non-flyer, and they're taking like 2, 4, 9 damage or something. We're certainly not worried about throwing away a creature into if we draw Overcome. I think the right play here is just to send stone everything. It's just so much damage for the 1/2/2 that I don't expect to really need. Okay, so now there's two possible plays. There's attack with 5/5, which they would have to double block to trade off with, or there's attack with everything. If we send everything, they get to eat 2 1/1s. They take 7. That puts them to 3. And then next turn, we have 3 creatures to their 2. That's not the best. So now I think we switch gears and send just the champ. If they double block, that means our 1/1s are free to attack next turn. If they take it, then we got in 5, which is only 2 less than 7 anyway. So there was no need to alpha this turn. So now we want to go back to alphing, I think. They have to put something in front of the champ. Unfortunately, we don't have 3 green, so we can't play Ceratops and give it haste. But assuming they didn't draw anything, they can't take the champ, so their choices now are double block champ and go to 1, or eat a 1/1 chump block champ and go to 2. So this is a good turn to alpha again. And just play this post-combat. It doesn't even die to the minus from Chandra. It does 3 to everything. I mean, if they want to minus exit to kill Ceratops, cool. They'll just die to my Swarm. All right, off to a nice 3-0 start here. This red-green deck is really strong. Really happy with how this one came out. Thought it wasn't looking that great, but we just got like a good curve, good synergy, the right amount of power cards and removal. Just Lola, huh? Hi, Lola. Still drawing first. 9 red sources. I think I'm going to keep this. This is why I choose to draw. On the play, these hands are so much more awkward. With the extra card every turn, I got to assume I can get there. I don't need to get there turn 1 or 2. I have a 2-drop to play. I just need to get there by turn 3 on the 9 outer. And if I draw, like, green cards I can cast, that's decent too. Okay, so what are we discarding? Assuming we draw 1 mountain, we want to keep the cards we can mostly cast. Could get rid of Reduce. We are a long time away from that. I think that's probably right, even though it's the most powerful card. There's a saying, right? Like fortune favors the brave or the bold or something like that. Just keep keeping these risky hands and just keep getting there. It's better than taking a mulligan. Okay, I don't want to trade. There's nothing that punishes you for not blocking. I could block to force the pump, but if they have nothing else to do with their mana, they're going to do it anyway. And otherwise, their creature goes back to being a 1/1. They can't just keep investing in it every turn. So I don't really want to trade with Fenlurker in the early turns. Better to just take the 1 a turn for a couple turns. On the later turns, I probably would trade with it. So for now, I'm going to smuggle. This way they can't block and pump and use their mana. Plus they could have Blade Brand or other tricks. And again, I'm happier to strand their mana than let them spend it. We're 1 mana away from 2 good 4-drops. We have a game-winning 5 mana card. So see what they do here. I think now we're getting to the point where I'm happy to shock it away as we go to the late game, though. So smuggle the champion before it grows, because we won't be able to smuggle it anymore. Then we play our pup. It turns into a 3/3, but it's still unblockable for the rest of this turn. And then, of course, we'll switch to smuggling the 2/2. I'm not worried about Overcome, but I'm also not worried about chump blocking yet, so I can wait on the pup. I mean, if I draw Overgrowth Elemental, then I chump with the pup, I'll gain an extra life. So hopefully we'll just draw a land. Okay, so now we can play Ceratops or Brawler. We're pretty far ahead in life. We've got the Overcome and we've got the pup to chump with. So I think I'll smuggle the 2/2. I don't have any more tokens to make, though, and trading 3/3s, even though mine could grow and I have Overcome, helps me to be able to attack profitably. And I think Overcome is going to be way more than enough regardless. So I'm going to go ahead and make that play. If I draw a land, I'm not going to play Ceratops and give it haste because I have Overcome to slap down. So I'm going to go ahead and play Ceratops over Brawler just because it's a bigger, better creature right now. They're still attacking with both, huh? All right, I believe they have Blade Brand or Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, and they're hoping I'll block with Ceratops. I will not. I will chump the 4/4 now with the 0/1 rather than go down to 8. Could wait one more turn, but you never know what they're going to have. Like I said, I think Overcome's going to be more than enough. So 5, 7, 9 plus 6 is 15. That's still lethal despite them putting out 6 toughness. Like I said, more than enough. It happens to be exactly enough, not like way more than enough. But they did put out 6 toughness, which is about as much as we could have expected. And of course, if they had to trade everything off and went to 2 or lower, we'd still have shock unless they had a way to gain life or something. Doesn't matter if you switch your blocks, opponent. They all have trample. So black, white. We didn't really see flyers. Did we see anything to play this? Because like I said, this card is better against black than blue generally. I mean, it's okay against blue for counters too, but there's not as much of that played as there's removal in limited. But we didn't see anything, right? They didn't play Bone Splinters. They didn't play not Spark Harvest. That's the last format. They didn't play Agonizing Siphon. They didn't play Murder or Splinters. That's not to say they don't have any, and you can cycle this for 1 mana anytime they play any black card. They had like do Necromancer. Oh, it also stops the discard effect, I think, if it's target opponent. That card's actually each opponent, I think, so I don't know if it actually does stop that. But black's generally going to have removal, and we can cycle it for 1 mana, so I probably want to board it in. I know we keep winning with Overcome, and it's fantastic in our deck, and then I take it out. It's kind of weird. But this deck is so good. Look at all the cards. They're all great. Like, I have to cut something. I'm already on 16 land, not even 17. I guess I'll go with a Smuggler on the draw. It's harder to make that happen. I didn't see any removal, so I didn't take out Overcome. But I'm boarding in the Veil anyway, because black's got a lot of common removal in this format. And we can always just cycle it for 1 green mana. Anytime they cast a black spell, we can just pay a green, play it, and draw a card. So if we get towards the mid-game and we can protect our good creatures with it, that's awesome. If they go ahead and play a black creature and don't play a removal when I play a Lavakin Brawler or Shifting Ceratops or something, then I'll just cycle it for a green. If it didn't have the ability to do that, I would never board it in here because the risk of holding a dead card would far outweigh the potential benefit. It's why you don't board a Negate that often. But if Negate had... if Negate drew a card, even if it was an alternate mode, if it was just like 2 mana cycling, so it wouldn't be a dead card, you'd board it in way more often. Not to mention that this card actually does both. If they play a black removal spell, you get to draw a card and counter the removal. But even if it didn't do both, even if it was literally give your cards hexproof from black or draw a card, your choice, that's a big difference because then the card is never dead. Well, we can't shock that, unfortunately, but we have some business. We could Overgrowth, but there's nothing to pump yet, so I think we'll just start with Pup. Now, there's a magic card. This card is excellent in limited. The fact that it makes Pride Mates, like, this is already going to grow because this is going to gain a life now. Makes me wish I'd played Overgrowth so I could at least eat the Chaplain if they wanted to gain one. And then, so if, like, you're behind on board, instead of a card like this doing nothing, it just immediately starts gaining you life. If you're ahead on board, you pretty much just win. Also, you can gain a ton of life so that your opponent can't just swarm you. We needed to draw land so we could Scampering Scorcher. It still wouldn't have been amazing. I would have just sent everything at Ajani. The Pride Mate would eat the 2/2, but I would have gotten Ajani off the board. Since we didn't draw land, Shock doesn't super help us here. Probably going to lose. I can attack. They'll block. I'll Shock it. Ajani will still be on 3. I'll have no board. They can make another Pride Mate token. Or I can play Overgrowth and pass. They can plus. This will go to a 4/4 and then potentially a 5/5. It's bad either way. But we have Overcome and a handful of spells, so I think we just have to play for a long game that we're probably going to lose to Ajani. On the bright side, if they're not holding any tricks or removal, if they wanted to grow those, they would have to attack with the Daybreak, and we could eat it with the Overgrowth. Doesn't look like they necessarily have tricks or removal, but they played Vulture, which grows both their creatures, so that's not great. All right, no need to chump yet. I'm not going to double block. So we drew the land. It might be one turn too late. They have 3 blockers, so I could play the Scorcher, attack Ajani with everything, and certainly kill it. That looks like it's going to be awful for me. I could Shock out Ajani so I don't have to make a horrible attack, but it's not really the best either. I guess I can attack with Overgrowth. If they trade the Flyer or the Pride Mate token for it, that's decent for me. No, they'll just trade the Flyer, and then they'll get to attack back with the Chaplain. It's really bad now. I can't let them plus Ajani. I have to just slow this board down, I guess, and then try and win with my Overcome and Scampering Scorcher. So I'm just going to basically do nothing this turn and Shock it. It was absolutely awful for me, but if I can dump out my hand like the Brawler, Scorcher, and then start playing Overcomes, maybe I can steal a game. I still have a lot of life to work with. If we're assuming they don't have anything, I want this block. I don't want to end up dying to Flyers, so I guess could do like that. I can't let them just keep gaining life and keep growing those Pride Mates. It's a bad situation either way. Okay, Cutthroat, that's probably what they had last game. So if I chump the 5/5, I take 4, 7, 9. That's not lethal. If I hit them for 5 with the Ceratops. But the 5/4 kind of stops most of their board. I was hoping to race and play aggro, but it doesn't look like that's really an option now that they played the Cutthroat there. So, I mean, I can play the 5/4 here. I can trade it for the 5/5. And then next turn I have the Lavakin and the 2/2 to double block the 4/4, the 3/3. Still taking damage from the Vulture, but I've got a couple shocks left. Some reduced to ashes. Can hope that they're mostly holding lands and still try and play for the long game here. Certainly it's not looking good, but we're not dead. Oh, the Ceratops could even potentially block the Vulture. I mean, they're attacking, so instead I'll eat a 3/3 and chump here and take 6. If I block the 5/4 on the 5/5, the 2/2 has no good block, so I'd rather take the free kill on a 3/3. Basically, they're losing a 3/3 and I'm losing a 2/2. And I don't necessarily want to lose the Ceratops because the reach ability means it can block the Vulture. So I think this is definitely the right block this turn. We're not trying to play around anything. They'll probably add a creature to the board, but if they have any more removal or tricks or something, I just concede. We can't beat stuff like that. If they add some generic little creature to the board, okay, we'll continue about our business. And yeah, so that's more than a little creature because that's Blood for Bones on the Cutthroat means the Ceratops dies. There's a good chance I'll draw a card and then concede. And the Vulture's growing both Pride Mates. This is actually kind of sweet. I got to appreciate this. Yeah, we're dead. I'm not going to put out 3/1/1s, chump all 3 of these and take 2. What am I doing the turn after that? So I don't hate the matchup. The only flyer we saw was the Vulture, so I don't think I want to Airstrike. I still didn't really see black removal, although this does stop Cutthroat as well. So I think I'll leave that in. Still probably going to choose to draw. Everything looks fine. I mean, we stumbled. Hopefully we won't. Turn 4 Ajani on the play is scary. Planeswalkers do make you want to play somewhat, but if we don't stumble, I think we can work through it. It's going to be hard for anybody to be too far ahead against us if we have a functional hand when we have our triple shock deck with a bunch of like cheap stuff too. And you're much more likely to stumble on the play than on the draw. That's why I draw. So it's pretty interesting. Black-white grindy. Blood for Bones is really good. Ajani is really good. I'm not surprised to be playing against this in round 4. I think it can be a really good archetype when you get there, and it looks like the opponent did. Hopefully, they won't have too perfect of a hand, but if things line up well, I think Shock could be really good against them. And then all we have to do is start playing our 3 and 4 drops, and we should be able to pressure that Planeswalker before it can take over a game, even on the draw. That game, if I had hit land 4 1 turn earlier, 2 turns earlier, whenever I was stumbling, it would have been a whole different game. I don't know if I would have won or lost, but there's a very real chance I could have flipped that game. Okay, well, this is about as good a hand as we can ask for. Hopefully they don't have Disfigure for Embercap, but we have 1 drop, 2 drop, and then we can start casting these right away. This hand makes me wish I was on the play because it's just so perfect. These are the kind of hands that make people want to play first because you just nut draw on the play with hands like this and you can't lose, really. But, again, that doesn't happen that often in Limited. I think it's a lot more important to play for the subtle advantages than it is to make sure your best draws are even better. Like, I'm probably going to win this game on the draw with this hand. Sure, it would be way better if I was on the play, but it's just not necessary. Whereas the extra card on each of your turns helps you hit land and creature drops. You only think of it in terms of land drops, but also hitting your creature drops is really important. That's one of the main reasons you draw a lot more in Limited than in Constructed. Because in Constructed, your decks are built to always have stuff to do every turn because you get to choose your curve perfectly. In Limited, maybe you have 5 2-mana cards. It's a big difference whether you see 9 cards or 8 cards in order to have one by turn 2. Maybe you have 5 3-mana creatures. Now you have 10 cards instead of 9 cards to see one by turn 3, along with your lands. Okay, Scorcher into the Aerialist wouldn't be too effective here. If they want to trade for my Sedge Scorpion, I would be ecstatic. So we'll, of course, attack. And then post-combat, get our Brawler out. Next turn, if we play Scorcher, we can attack, and then the Brawler is going to be huge. And we can send everything, or we can send just Brawler and Scorpion, depending on what they do. So Vulture will grow the Aerialist, but the only way they're going to be able to kill the Brawler is with a double block. Shields down, so that's not an option for them. So it looks like now... Well, is there a way we can cast Leafkin and Scorcher? Because we could give haste to the Leafkin if we could, but I think we're mana short of that with 5. So we could use all 5 here and play Scuttlemutt and Leafkin, which means next turn we'll have access to 8 mana to play double Scorcher, but we'll deal substantially less this turn. Or we could play Scorcher, and then we could potentially attack with everything. If they block a 1/1, we'll have 3, 4, 5 elementals, so they'll take 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. If they block like a 2-2, they'll take one less, and then we'll get a trade. That looks good to me. I think this alpha is just too good to pass on. Assuming they don't have some one white card, which is basically just God's Willing, and then who cares? They're just eating an Ember Cat with it. They can block a 1-1, but they're taking 7, 9, 10, 12 all the way down to 7, and we're just losing 1, 1, 1. Or they can trade with Ember Cat, and then they take one less. And the reason I like this is because I could potentially use the Ember Cat's mana next turn. So I'm happy to throw away a 1-1 to deal 1 extra point and keep Ember Cat in play here. Or if they want to trade with Ember Cat, then they take all the damage from the 1-1s. Sometimes math is for blockers. You can just turn all your creatures sideways. But they've got 2 blockers, so it's not going to be that easy. So I think we basically want to take this turn off. We don't want to play the second Scorcher until after the Woodland Champion if possible. And we want to dump our hand and swarm them. Lavakin for any 2 of their creatures helps clear the way for us. So let's just make sure if they double block, we're killing 2. Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, so it'll be a 6 power. So if they blocked it with the Necromancer and the Aerialist, they'd only lose 1. So we just have to play our creature here pre-combat. Now it's up to 7, which means if they want to kill it, since it has 4 toughness, they have to put 2 things on it, and then we kill both. And then Sedge Scorpion can keep poking them, because we certainly don't need it back. So we trade the Brawler for their Necromancer here, Boneclad Necromancer, and the 2-2 token it made. Helps clear the way for the Swarm later. And just continue dumping our hand. I'm not worried about Overcome. We still have 5 creatures, plus 4 more in hand. Overcome will just be game if we draw it and they don't do some sort of sweeper. Just want to clear the way so I can have the best alpha I can have. So the Woodland Champion will be a 4-4. So if they don't play something that gains life to grow the Aerialist, that means even if the Aerialist eats a 2-2 in combat like Ember Cat, whatever they play is chumping the champion and they're taking a bunch of damage. So the alpha looks pretty strong. That's what we're going to see now. There's no way they're going to be able to take 4 here, also block a 2-2, and live. So I think we're in good shape. So we could play Cavalier. Do we have enough mana to give it haste? It does give itself haste. 2, 3, 7. Yes, we do. So we could play Cavalier, pump the team, and give Cavalier haste 2 and attack with it. I'm not actually sure if that's better than just playing Scorcher. If we play Scorcher, let's see what happens. We attack with everything. The Leafkin's doing nothing, basically. This is a 4-4. And then we have 2, 5, 6 other attackers. So if they let the 4-4 through, they block 2, they let 4 others through, they would die. So something has to chump block the 4-4. So basically Gravedigger chumps Woodland Champion, Aerialist eats Ember Cat, and they take 5 and go down to 2. I mean, that looks pretty good. And then we still just hold the Cavalier. Because, I mean, if we play the Cavalier... If we play the Cavalier here and give it haste, +1/+0 haste and attack, we could attack with, like, just the Cavalier, they chump it with the Digger, or we could send, like, the Woodland as a 2-2 and these 2 1/1 elementals that were in play as 2/2s because they got pumped. And then what happens is Aerialist eats Champion, Digger chumps Cavalier, and they take 4. So this way... we get them a little bit lower into shock range, which doesn't matter that much because we know they're playing Vulture. They'll probably gain life. but we can still play Cavalier next turn. We're killing, like, the Digger either way, but we're not losing a 2-2 Woodland Champion that would grow to a 4-4. We're losing a 2-2 Ember Cat that we don't need as much. Just seems like a stronger play. So now I think 4-5 is going to eat 4-4. So they should be dead to an alpha, and Shock will definitely ensure that. No need to do anything first. Moment of Heroism might be one of the only ways they could live. They might go for it on the Vulture, not the Aerialist. So definitely attack first. And we got it. Up to 4-0. See if we can get the 5-0. These end when you get 5 wins or 2 losses. So we're 4-0. So we have a maximum of 2 matches left. Hopefully only 1. But even if we have a match to give now. It's the same prize for 5-1 and 5-0. So if we lose this, it's no big deal as long as we win the next one. It's like being up a game in a best of 3. Doesn't matter whether you win in 2 or 3, but always nicer to get it done right away. So people always ask me when you draw first, and I always try and point out that it's more about the removal than it is about the aggression level of your deck. And this deck's a perfect indicator. We've got a lot of cheap cards to play. Sedge Scorpion, 3 Shocks, and then 3 2-drops. So that's 7 cards to play by turn 2 that are almost always all going to interact, help us not get ran over. So even though we have an aggressive double overcome deck, I'm still choosing to draw. This is an example of a draw first deck because it has triple shock. Now, if you simply took these shocks out and put in like 2-drops, I might choose to play because you might not always be able to not get run over to stop aggressive flyers. But when your deck is filled with shocks, it's just great to draw first. I guess Smuggler makes more sense than Pup here. If they don't have a shock, we get in 2 damage now. And holding Pup has a small upside of we could draw Woodland Champion and then play the Pup after. If they had a 2-2 untapped, I'd play the Pup because the 2-2 haste wouldn't really do anything at the moment. Also, it's good to play the red card. This is actually probably the most important reason because next turn we can double spell with Pup and Shock if we want to without drawing a mountain. I wasn't that worried about it because we have the double Scorcher, so I didn't think it was that likely that we were going to want to play Pup and Shock next turn. But if you're on 1 mountain and 3 forests and you have a handful of red cards, you do want to play red cards over green cards where you can. That will ensure smoother mana usage and better ability to double spell later. So unless the opponent has Flame Sweep, this game doesn't look like it's going to be very good. We've had a lot of great games in this run, but the opponent's stuck on lands. And if they had Flame Sweep and they didn't use it there, they're the greediest I've ever seen. It would have wiped my board at the cost of their 1/1. So the question is now, do we Scorcher and then get even more blown out by Sweep, or do we attack? I gotta believe if they had Sweep, they would have used it. But also, it's the only way we can lose, I think. So I think I'm just going to attack here because I want to get in this extra damage and then just play Pup. And then if they do end up having Sweep, I've got a second Scorcher to play later so that my overcomes are still on and everything like that. It's not a big difference, but I'm getting in a bunch more damage. 2 more, I guess, not a bunch, and making a trade. I just, don't really believe they have it, but you never know, and it's the only really relevant card. If they untap and draw land and play a 4-drop, they're not winning this game. So I talked about how much I like Ancestral Blade and Wolf Rider Saddle. Let me talk about how much I don't like Mask of Immolation. Look, it's a playable card. I think it's a fine inclusion in most decks, but it's not an early pick. A 2-mana 1/1 is not a very good creature. The sack to ping with damage not going on the stack is just okay. It's not that amazing of an ability. So all in all, and that doesn't move around and give all your creatures +1/+1. I play it if I have a really aggressive deck. I play it if I have Sanitarium Skeletons to combo with it, but I do not play it in every deck. Not much to do here sideboard-wise. They discarded a Vorse Claw, the 6-mana 7/7, so they're red-green. I'm not going to board an Airstrike just to kill a Mask against a red-green deck. They probably don't have flyers. I'm not going to board a Natural End just to kill Mask. It's an acceptable target if we see other better targets. It could help us board in Natural End, but I'm not going to board it in just for that. Don't see a reason to change much. We didn't see anything since the opponent had mana problems and only played one card, actually. They just discarded the other one. All right, another pretty good hand. I mean, we don't have cheap cards. We have 2 5-drops, but we're on the draw. We've got 3 lands, both colors with a shock. If you're thinking about mulliganing this hand, you're doing something wrong. Not if you're actually mulliganing it, but if you're thinking about mulliganing it. Looks like, sadly for the opponent, they did have to take a mulligan. So while that's a 2-drop, we can't really shock effectively. It is also just a 1/1. It's not really pressuring us. If that was a 2-mana 2/2, I would shock it. But I'll just take 1 from it and see if they play anything better to shock. Nothing yet, but we don't have a 3-drop. So again, I'll just sit back because 1 is not a lot of pressure. End of this turn, I might shock it if they don't do anything else, just because then we're going to start using our mana. We have 2 5-drops to play, 2 4-drops to play. So I could see myself using all my mana for the rest of this game for the most part. So now I will shock it end of their turn. I think 5/4 is enough bigger than Lavakin, which is going to attack as a 3/4 that we want to get it out here. If we draw land 5, we could play it on curve and give it haste, so it looks like there's a lot of upside there. But if we don't draw land 5, we could be missing a better attack. That might have been wrong, though. The thing is, with double reduce and stuff, I wasn't really planning for the game where I draw land 5, because that's the game where all my good removal's on. I was kind of planning for the game where I don't draw land 5. Also, if they put out blockers and I draw land 5, I can just reduce them and hit for 5, which is a lot more than 3. So I think that my play was probably right. Though, of course, if I knew everything was going to get drawn the way it was, I would have played Brawler, had them killed that, then played the Ceratops with haste. But it's more likely they play a blocker than it is they play a removal spell. But we're chilling. As long as they don't have removal, if they play a big blocker, we've got reduce. If they play a small blocker, we've got shock. If they have removal, then we can't really pressure them. We just got to draw creatures. There's plenty of those in this deck. Double Scorcher. Definitely going to shock that. We don't know if shock's going to end up dead in the late game. And we're in that good position where a land is a good draw because it puts us closer to Meteor Golem, and then a spell we can cast is a good draw. There are ways we could lose. Like, we just got lucky that they drew Mountain number 5. If they play Vorse Claw, which is double green, that's a 7/7. We can't reduce it. We could Meteor Golem it, but we're still 2 lands away from that. For now, though, with nothing else to do, I'm willing to reduce even just an Ember Cat. I don't want them to block and then possibly finish Brawler off with Shock. I don't want them to have Infuriate, +3/+2, block, and then trade. I don't care about taking the 1. That's irrelevant. Just get in some damage. Make sure our creatures stay in play to the best of our ability when we're holding Overcome. And remember, this isn't that scary a card yet, but we have plenty of elementals in this deck, including double Scampering Scorcher, which is 3 elementals for the price of 1. So even if I draw land 7, even though it's a better tempo play to Meteor Golem the Tracker, I'm going to reduce it. The reason is because they're holding 2 cards. They're not lands because they've been stuck on lands this game. We saw Vorse Claw, which is a 7/7. That can be Meteor Golemed, but it can't be reduced. I'm pretty happy here to just reduce the tracker. They should have pinged me. They just forgot. And then get in. But who cares? It's just 1 point of damage to me. And get in. And now if they play something big. Now let's say they played another tracker. Sure, I would Meteor Golem it. I'm not going to just keep this Meteor Golem indefinitely. But now I have Meteor Golem for a potential 7/7 that I can't reduce. Look, they didn't do anything. My play didn't work out better. But that's okay. Because we're in decent shape anyway. So it turns out what they actually had was Nightpack Ambusher, which has Flash. Nothing I could really do about that getting me. I couldn't particularly predict that. Go ahead and Meteor Golem it, but I could have reduced it, so that wouldn't have worked out particularly different. Except I missed 3 points of damage. But my play was definitely right, because again, they could have played a 7/7 instead of Ambusher there, and then having Meteor Golem could be the difference between winning or losing. So it's important strategy. Your plays don't always work out, but the plays there were definitely correct. Kind of curious what their last card is since they missed land drops. Could be a pump spell. Yeah, Pulse can make some sense. That's a card that could still be in their hand. And now this becomes a very losable game because of Nightpack Ambusher. Not much I can do. 4/4 Flash. Couldn't put them on Pulse specifically. And now they're going to start making 3/3s. So now I'm probably going to lose the game because of the way I sequenced. Because if I had reduced the Ambusher, they wouldn't have been able to Pulse it. They would have just pulsed back a 3/2. Again, it doesn't make my plays wrong. This is a rare we hadn't seen yet. There's no reason to put them on that card. We do have 9 mana, so if we top deck Scampering Scorcher and then play Overcome, that's what, 10, 15 points of attack? Probably have to draw a second Overcome too. This game swung nicely for the opponent. I thought we were looking pretty good. Nightpack Ambusher will do that. There's the Scorcher, too. So we're definitely going to be short, though. So for now, we'll just play it and pass. I guess if I draw the second Scorcher next turn, I might have lethal. Plenty of things to shock with these Aeronauts. We want to take out creatures that just die to reduce and don't go wide and things like that. We see the opponent has double reduce. Can't go to 2 or they'll ping me out. So let's go ahead and just chump with our smallest creatures. Alright, we're just dead. This is nowhere near enough. So let's see how we can sideboard. We want to take out big things that just come into play and die to reduces, but Cavalier has a powerful ability. We're not going to take that out. Meteor Golem is a powerful ability. Ceratops can gain haste. So our worst things as far as that are brawlers, and those cost a mana less than reduce. So I'm definitely not going to be changing anything there. This doesn't even work. Reduce exiles. Doesn't look like there's much to change. Maybe we want Uncaged Fury so they can't get us with the flash creature if possible. We didn't actually see that much. No, we did see stuff to shock. All those 3/2s. Sedge Scorpion is good against them. Yeah, so I'm going to take out 1 Overcome on the draw. It's a good card, but sometimes having 2 can be situational. Still going to choose to draw. Try and beat them up with the extra cards and going wide and removing their big things. Overcome is mostly gravy. Okay, well, this game will probably come down to whether we draw a forest as per the usual. I would not mull this hand, but again, it's why I like to draw. You get a lot of dicey hands in limited, and having an extra card in each of your turns is a pretty big advantage as far as finding what you need. We've got the best card in our deck. We need a forest. Hopefully we'll draw either Shocks or Forests. Even Mountain lets us cast a 3-drop and then Cavalier. Double green power card, not what I was hoping to draw. Maybe it'll be the first time we actually don't get there. Hey, I said we have a match to give. Bonus Magic, right? Playing 6 matches is more fun than playing 5. Yep, looks like it's going that way. I think that this is probably a luxury we don't have. Okay. Not the best game. Game 2 was really good, though. I might have won that game if I had played the Meteor Golem first, though I do think it would have been wrong. So now we're 4-1. Try again. That was our match to give. It's almost like we planned losing that one. I'm just kidding. I love 5-0ing any chance I get. I was bragging in the last video with Deathsea that we went 5-0, 10-0, I think. But I guess without Deathsea here to help, I'm just I'm a 5-1er, not a 5-0er. Hopefully we'll get there, though. So this is going to be the last match either way, because we're 4-1. These things end 2 losses or 5 wins. Still love the deck. Things didn't line up well there. Lost a close game and then had a bad draw. Not a great hand, but I'm going to keep it. It's a 16-land deck. We were already 5/7 of the way to Meteor Golem, and we have a 3-drop. Gotta hope we'll draw spells. We're 66% or so every turn to do so, with only 11 lands left and 33 cards. Looking good so far. Now we have plenty to do. Plus the opponent didn't have that fast a start. So this is going to show you how much I respect this card. I could play a 3-drop, trade with it if they don't have anything, but if they have removal, attack, and draw cards, I'm still going to have to kill it next turn anyway. This game's not going anywhere fast. Instead of playing a 3-drop and then next turn double spelling with another 3-drop and shock, I'm just going to shock that right now, not let them draw cards. Nothing scares me more than my opponent tapping their creature to draw cards. Just settle in for the long game. My hand is loaded. Just don't want them attacking and drawing extra cards. Second best black common, Audacious Thief. This card is fantastic. Here, if they're bluffing, cool. It's not like there's Blade Juggler like in that format. I'll take my 2. I'm not going to throw away the Brawler to several different commons. Fathom Fleet Cutthroat, as well as Blade Brand. Now, this turn, if we play Scorcher, we can't attack with the Scorcher, but those are all elementals. So that gives us a nice attack. They don't have a block because the Mammoth Spider only has 3 power, and we hit them back for 6. Then next turn, we can smuggle the Brawler, hit them for 6 again, and further clog up the board with Pup. So this is not a game or a race that's looking bad at all. I'm not saying it's just going to work like that. The opponent may have removal, but Brawler works out pretty well against the black removal. If they want to Bone Splinters it, they have to sack one of their creatures right now. If they have Agonizing Siphon, that can't even kill it. Murder will take care of it, but Murder's the best common for a reason. Murder kills things. That's what it does. Murder is the best common. It's a lot better than the second best common. It's just a super efficient removal. Take it aggressively. So, opponent plays out another big creature. As long as they don't have the ability to give them trample, like with Overcome, this is not going to be a close race. In fact, we're just going to lethal them next turn, I think, because this puts them to 8, and then we can smuggle in Brawler and the 2/2 Wolf token from Pup. We can slap the 0/1 here on the 7/7 Vorse Claw. So, I mean, it's not really a close race. If they play Overcome, we might be dead. It might be close. 7, 10, 12 plus 6 is 18 points of trample. So we only have to absorb 4, so we're not dead, but then it becomes tight. Then we have to start losing some elementals. For now, I'll happily chump a 7/7 with an 0/1, stay further out of Overcome range for the future, and see if they can do anything about our board. So that does nothing, and there's not a lot they can have here. Agonizing Siphon costs 4, Bone Splinter is a sorcery, Murder costs black, Rabid Bite is a sorcery. I'm not saying there are no cards, but I can't think of a common that green-black can have to not take 8 lethal here. So I'm going to go for it. Plus, we're not dead on the backswing anyway. All of that counting was if they have Overcome. We're still going to have all 3 of our 1/1 elementals back to chump and block with. And it looks like they didn't. So we're playing against black-green. Didn't really see flyers or removal. Saw double Audacious Thief, which we've got our triple shock for, so our deck matches up well. Saw some big green creatures, which we have Sedge Scorpion, and our deck matches up okay against. Our deck's not aggressive enough for active trees in there. Think we're good to go, except for Veil, which even though we didn't see black removal, like I said, there's 3 different commons that are all good, and you can always cycle it for 1 mana. And the opponent played a lot of black spells. So I think we want to bring that in. But if they're going to be a big slow deck without a lot of removal, we probably want both Overcomes. Could board one out, certainly, but I don't think that's necessarily what we want to do. Do I have stuff that lines up poorly against Audacious Thief or stuff that lines up well against it? These line up well against it. Smuggler lines up poorly against it. I have to trade and they go up a card. I think we'll just take out a Smuggler. If we stalemate, we can win with the Overcomes. Hopefully we can shock a Thief. I don't know how many they have, but I have 3 shocks. They'll probably choose to play, but I would choose to draw if I had choice. They don't know I have 3 shocks, so I'm not necessarily criticizing the opponent. If they had my deck list, they should choose to draw, and some people would and some people wouldn't. It would be correct. But of course, they don't have my deck list, so just because I played a shock, they think I most likely have 1 shock and not 3. Hopefully nothing that can't be shocked. Well, it's a good creature that can't be shocked, but it's also not a very aggressive creature. Only play this turn as Overgrowth, so we won't get to pump anything, but that's okay. I'm not going to take the turn off. Not when I have a handful of spells. And that's fine. We didn't need that Overgrowth. So now I think we want to cast red cards where possible. The Ceratops can gain haste. I'm just going to play the Brawler. It's as big as the Ceratops anyway if I want it to be. I can play Scampering Scorcher, which will turn it into a 6/4. The Ceratops doesn't really have a great attack into these 2 creatures. They could just double block. So did we see Cutthroat or Bladebrand last game? Because I think they would make this attack whether they have it or not. And this time our back is a little bit more to the wall. So I think I am just going to block. Just in case they don't have anything, save 2 points of damage. The reason I block this time and I don't usually is because last game I didn't see anything, I don't really think. But also because they're out in front and I don't want to be taking extra damage. So they just played their 7/7. If I play Sedge Scorpion, I get 3/1/1 to chump with. But sadly, I don't even get an attack. I want to play the Woodland Champion first pretty badly. I think I can take the 1 hit for 7. And now I keep Veil and Shock up, so I'm pretty protected. So I'm just going to take this turn kind of off. It's pretty bad, but you know, if they don't have anything, I take the hit for 7. If they attack with these, I can Brawler the Tracker and then finish it off with Shock, which is pretty good for me heading to the late game. If they play a black removal this turn, Veil. If they play any black creature, I'll cycle it to help me find lands. So, no real help for me there. Shock Scorpion because it has Death Touch. And then we'll go back to the plans from last turn. Most likely cast Scorcher. And then we can leave up Veil again, try and cycle it, or protect stuff from black removal. But we grow our Woodland Champion, so now it and Brawler can attack. They can double block the Brawler profitably, but killing the Blightwood Tracker is kind of acceptable here because they can use this every turn now. Also, this isn't a good defender, so you have to trade it down on offense sometimes. If this was just a printed 6-4 instead of the bonus when it attacked, I might not attack here. But if I hold it back, it's only a 2-4 blocker, so it's not super duper helpful. We definitely want to kill Tracker over Spider. We don't even have flyers. That's one thing we don't do. Looks like we got lucky and they whiffed there. So we've got chump blockers for their 7-7. We've got a 4-4 that can attack. Additionally, we can play a 5-4 haste that can attack. So this is looking okay. For a game the opponent was way ahead in, this is looking decent. I'm not going to triple block. If I knew they had stone nothing forever, I might. But if I go to 2, I might end up dying to some little flyer. Or I don't want to die to a pump spell right now. These 1/1s are happy to block. So nothing key to reduce, still have multiple chump blockers, and this shifting Ceratops can gain haste. So that makes this turn, slap it down, give it haste, attack with the 4/4s, 5-4 and 4-4 that they don't really have blocks on, and then we have back our chump blockers. Keep taking 2 from the netcaster, of course, if they want to attack with it, and we'll keep chumping the 7-7. If we get them to switch gears and hold the Vorse Call back, it's only a matter of time until we draw Mountain for Cavalier. So that's definitely a good enough creature to just reduce. It can stop the 4-4. The only thing I don't like, though, is if I reduce that and attack with both of these, I'm holding up just 1/1/1, and then I die to a removal spell. I'm in a pretty good position. I think that's unnecessary. So what I'm going to do this turn is just send the 5-4. Now they're chumping or taking another nice hit down to 5. Then I can play the pup. Oh, wow, I should have played the pup first. I'm so bad. So this turn sequencing was right. I missed this because I was thinking about whether to reduce the spider or not. The pup makes a token which grows the woodland champion. So what I should have done this turn was played the pup pre-combat, and then I could have attacked with the Ceratops and the champion, and they would have had no block on either 5-5. And then I still have 3 chump blockers back plus the Veil. So playing pup this turn was definitely right. But for those watching, the right play was play the pup pre-combat and then attack with the champion and the Ceratops. We're still in a pretty good position, but we'd be in a substantially better one. They would have had to take 5 damage basically there, and that's all. That would be the only difference. So they would just be at 6. Oh, that game's trample. I had to double block it there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I played that game so bad. I was still thinking about the pup situation, so I forgot the Vorse Claw gained trample from the Thicket Elemental that they played there, and I even had the 5-5 back, so I should have probably lost, basically. If I remember that game's trample, I can maybe chump to live, but my 5-5 should have been tapped. I should have gotten rewarded for the mistake and actually had the 5-5 back so that I could just double block their 7-7 with my 5-5 and my 2-2, and then continue about my business in a reasonable winning position. So I should have actually gotten rewarded for the mistake there, but I made a second mistake and then lost the game. Okay, though. The only thing I could potentially change would be the Veil. They didn't really play black cards that game, so I never even had an opportunity to cycle it. They've got to be playing black for something. I'm still going to assume they might have some removal because, like I said, the card cycles for 1 mana. And we know they have black cards. They played multiple Thieves and Gravedigger and whatever the other game. They just didn't draw any of that game. But, yeah, I played that game bad. 2 different mistakes. I mean, everything was good until those last turns. But two different mistakes there, both really bad. I was in a fine winning position if I double blocked the Vorse Claw. And I don't know that they're going to play something that gives it trample. The right play on my previous turn was definitely pup pre-combat and then attack. Sorry for the loose play. Now we're in game 3. See what happens. Okay, so far so good. We have our Druid, so we can get down a turn 3 Brawler, which means we can then pump it with the Overgrowth, which is nice. And there's not really anything they can do to kill it here. They don't have double black for murder. As I talked about, Bone Splinters and Siphon are sorceries. Rabid Bite's a sorcery. There's not really that much. So that's one of the last cards I wanted to see because it's one of the only things that could profitably block this Brawler. I've got the 3 shocks to reduce, so I can sit around and wait. There's no way I'm going to trade a potentially giant Brawler attacker for their Sedge Scorpion when I have Overcome in hand. Hopefully they don't have Rabid Bite. So there goes the Brawler. Got to do other things. Scuttlemutt's not going to be able to attack into Leafkin, so I think Overgrowth makes a lot of sense. Pumping Leafkin Druid isn't the best, but it's not the worst either. This does make it so they can't poke me with the Sedge Scorpion. If they attacked, I'll happily block with the Druid. That trades a 1/4 for the 1/1 Death Touch and the Overgrowth, and the Leafkin's an elemental, so the Overgrowth will grow. Hopefully they'll just tap 4 an Agonizing Siphon, Overgrowth Elemental, or something. So, Hexproof from blue and black. That's not blue or black. Nothing I can do about that. This Veil of Summer's working out rather poorly. So I need 3rd red, and then I'll probably hold lands because of Cavalier and Mind Rot. Although I can counter Mind Rot with that too, so it does protect me from that. I'd attack if I thought it would mean Sedge Scorpion for Druid, but it'll probably just mean Druid and Druid bounce. And now my back is to the wall. I have Sedge Scorpion, but hey, there it is. Fortunate top deck, possibly my 1-outer to their 7/7 there. And if they have black removal, I've got the Veil to protect it and draw a card. So they would need another Rabid Bite. They've already played 2. Hopefully they don't have 3rd Rabid Bite. There's the black removal. Now we'll get to counter that and draw a card. Things actually lining up kind of well for me at the moment. If I'm just going to draw whatever I need at all times, can I have Cavalier now? Discard my hand and draw a bunch more cards. So that's an interesting draw. I don't know if I want to play it or not. With Overcome, I want my creatures in play, but I wouldn't be able to attack or block with them. They have haste, and I have a Woodland Champion in my deck, so that's a reason to hold it. I don't really need the chumps, because if they do kill Scorpion, I'll take the 7 once, and then I can always play it. Plus, I might surprise them with haste, so I think I'm just going to hold it for now. Even though it seems unlikely we'll top deck Woodland Champion, because it's only a 1-of, 25 card deck here, so we're 4% to draw it, but that's every turn. And it's only rising. So if we're in a stalemate, I don't need this in play, as opposed to in my hand, in case I draw it. I don't want to put out too many more lands, though, so that's making it tricky, because if Cavalier, I only want to stack so many lands in hand. So I think... Well, I guess because of Cavalier, I want more red than green in play. So for this turn, I'm going to play 1 land. But next turn, I might actually even just play the Scorcher, just because, like I said, I kind of only want to hold so many lands and spells in my hand. However, now we can play Ceratops. So I have the Scuttlemutt, so I can actually make their creatures blue. But if I make the Vorse Call blue, they can just block the Ceratops with the Sedge Scorpion. Now, if the Vorse Claw gets tapped somehow, that may work out really well for me. Also, if the Ceratops gets to 7, then I can also use Scuttlemutt with it. So I think the time has come to put out the Scorcher, because I might overcome sometime soon. And I can only hold so many lands. Like I said, if I draw a Cavalier and I get to discard a couple lands and draw a couple new cards, plus add a Cavalier to this massive board, I'm probably going to win anyway. But if I draw like a Scampering Scorcher, I need to play that and overcome. And honestly, I might overcome, like, anyway. The overcome alpha's pretty great right now. They don't have lethal back. Ceratops will either trample over Sedge Scorpion or trade with Vorse Claw. And now with Shock, to shock away Scorpion, I definitely think I overcome. I could attack with just Ceratops. If they block with Scorpion, I can make it blue. If they block with Vorse Claw, I can make it blue and then finish it with Shock. So attack with just Ceratops is an option. Or I could overcome. 3, 7, so that's plus 14. So I'm going to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to have 26 points of attackers. It doesn't look like their blocks are going to work out too well. But I think I probably should wait one turn. Now that Shifting Ceratops has a great attack here, what if they double block? I can't make them both blue. I end up shocking the Scorpion and turning the Vorse Claw blue just to fade it. So we're using protection with Scuttlemutt here. Turn Vorse Claw blue. And we don't have to play the shock until after damage. Now these will bounce. And then we can shock away their 7/7. And this will give us a much better overcome next turn. Well, it won't, because it turns out they had a Feral Invocation. Now all we lost was a shock there. But that didn't work out especially well. I could have maybe used overcome there and then shock to finish it off or something. But remember, the Scuttlemutt would have to be attacking too if I did that. So they're making this attack just to get a card. Go ahead and assume they don't have anything and take it out here with a 1/1. Because I'm not going to let them keep attacking with it. Might make our overcome slightly worse at the moment, but we're not in a hurry. Okay, so that's an interesting one. Without that, I don't think I could possibly overcome an attack because the Ceratops would just run into the Vorse Claw. Now, I mean, they almost certainly don't have any more tricks. We pulled the Invocation. If the 9/9 blocks one of the small creatures, I can always shock away the Sedge Scorpion, and they'll take a lot of damage, and the 5/4 will live. I think it's right. We'll just slap down Overcome. We still have Shock. So now what's going to happen is if the Vorse Claw blocks Ceratops, we're going to finish it with Shock, and then the rest of the attacks are pretty profitable. If the Vorse Claw blocks something small and Sedge Scorpion blocks Ceratops, then we shock the Sedge Scorpion, assuming we don't have lethal. So this block looks like either they have something for this Netcaster or they have to make that block to not die. And I'm pretty sure we're not that close to lethal, assuming Vorse Claw blocks Ceratops. So I really doubt that Netcaster needs to chump a 3/3. They can just take like 9. Yep. So this is kind of the block I expected. Not great, not horrible for us. But we shock away their only big creature. They're 9/9. And we're up pretty solid on board. So if the opponent doesn't play anything, our choices next turn would be attack with Scorpion and Druid or attack with all 4. If we attack with all 4, they eat a 1/1 and go to 4. If we attack with just the Scorpion and the Druid, they can bounce and take 1, or they can trade with Scorpion and take 1. I don't think we need to put them to 4 instead of 6 that badly, so my play would have been attack with just Druid and Scorpion. Now that they brought those back, my play is going to be to not attack with anything because Sedge Scorpion is stopping their Vorse Claw. Sure, I could poke with Scorpion, they'd trade Spider for it, but ultimately, I'd rather have my Scorpion back stopping their Vorse Claw here, and just continue with the stalemate. We have a second Overcome to draw into, we have Cavalier, still good cards in there. We've drawn 9 lands, which is not that many over. We're almost halfway through our deck, or we are halfway through our deck. But in these last 19 cards, we've got 7 lands, 12 spells. So I think we chill for now. Nothing I can do about that. So now the opponent can start hitting us for 7, and though we have chump blockers, that's a lot scarier. If I draw Reduce, I'm going to have an interesting choice, whether to reduce the Vorse Claw and shock it, or whether to reduce the Netcaster and shock the Scorpion. But shock only costs 1 mana, so we'll make that decision later. And I think if I shock away this Netcaster Spider, then my 1/1s can attack. So I think what I want to do here is attack with all 3. Any trade with Sedge Scorpion here is good for me. If Netcaster picks off a 1/1, they go to 5. What I'm going to be able to do here is shock away the Netcaster, leaving them only Vorse Claw, and then they have to hold the Vorse Claw back, or they're taking damage due to our life total advantage. And we know that we have a chump blocker and a 2/2 to come into play now. So it looks like they had a pump spell, so that made that attack work out poorly for me. But I could not have predicted they had Might of the Masses in hand there. So what have we used? We used 1 Scorcher, 1 Overcome. Yeah, so our best draws, we have the Reduces. I'm going to take it for now. I can always chump it later. So you imagine this Netcaster was gone, though. Then, if they didn't draw anything this turn, if they wanted to attack with Vorse Claw, they would take, like, 2 to 3 back, and then we have the 0/1, and then the Vorse Claw might not be able to attack. So even though a lot of my plays haven't worked out this match, that was right. There was no way to put them on Might of the Masses there. Now our board is collapsing, as is this game. We still have the ability to draw out of it, but we don't have the ability to attack because they drew another creature and had a pump spell to save Netcaster. We could still potentially overrun them with Scampering Scorcher. If we draw Cavalier, we almost certainly win. We get to discard these for new cards, and then they can't trade with the Cavalier or anything. Woodland Champion, after we play all their stuff, isn't the best. They should attack with Thief. I'm not sure whether they should send Spider or not. They probably should, because if I double block Spider, I have to let the Thief through. But they definitely should send Thief, because that gets them a card. So yeah, gonna just go ahead and trade with Thief, chump the Vorse Claw. Oh, it got trample again. I didn't have any choices there. The Thicket Crasher just ended the game. I mean, I could have put my Woodland Champion in front of the Vorse Claw, had no outs. But yeah, so sorry for the loose play in the last round. I do get a little drained sometimes towards the end of these. Disappointing back-to-back losses after a nice 4-0 start. This deck was really good. As you saw, we lost close games. Some of my plays didn't really line up well, but that doesn't mean they were wrong. I hope you really enjoyed this. This format is awesome. As you can see, there's so much going on. We played a lot of really good games in this, even some of the ones we lost. Anyways, that was a lot of fun. Now I'm off to Barcelona for the MC, but I will see you next week when I get back. I hope you're enjoying the draft videos and the M20 limited format.